Yesterday, my life was headed in one direction. Today, it is headed in another.
You ever think the universe is against you?
Fear, belief, love, phenomena that determine the course of our lives. These forces begin long before we are born and continue after we perish.
Our lives are not our own. We are bound to others, past and present. And by each crime and every kindness, we birth our future.
How about that you come again? waiting for us a better world. And I'll be waiting for you there.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
All right, everybody, it's the Outlaw Radio Network for the 18th of October, 2023. Thanks for checking out the show. K-Dog, Black Tom, Lori's here, Bob Ross is here, St. Paul will be here shortly. So there you go. What's going on, peeps? How are you? How's your week?
Do I have a microphone?
Yeah, your microphone's on.
Oh.
I hear you just fine.
Oh.
We are going to try something new at the microphones tonight. We want Paul to sound his best, so we're going to mute his microphone. How's your guys' week, guys? What's going on?
Oh, busy as usual. Quarter in. Woohoo!
Yeah, you're almost to the end of your, you quarter end stuff, and then Monday was your deadline for taxes if you had an extension, right?
That was my personal.
Oh, that wasn't for a business or anything you were doing? No? All right.
No, I had to push mine out too for my personal.
So did I.
I didn't.
And I'm still
I didn't.
scrambling.
Well, you did. You should have, because the business.
I should have, but I can
Yeah.
file an amended
No,
when,
I know
when we
you
have
can.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So when you get that stuff ready, let me know. I'll
Yeah.
file an amended.
I'll have to bring it.
I worked for the IRS long enough to know that the one thing I do not want to do is have any delays in my IRS stuff, because I will forget. And I will not file on time come April 18th or whatever the deadline date is. I will just forget, and then I'll be in even bigger trouble. So
Was that a job requirement for you?
Oh, yeah. When I worked for the agency, I could not file.
You
No,
couldn't extend?
Oh, I could extend.
Oh, okay.
I could do a legal extension. But
Right.
listen, I know myself well enough to know that if I extend, I'll forget.
Yeah.
And I won't file at the extension, then I'd be in big trouble. Is it a requirement for me now?
Yeah.
No.
No.
But when I worked for the
helps.
agency, when I worked for the Department of Treasury, it was a requirement. Now that I work for a different federal agency,
Right.
they say we're supposed to be compliant with our taxes and whatnot,
Yeah.
but there's no ramifications if you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I've ever seen.
Okay.
I've never heard of anybody getting fired from a different federal agency because they owed back taxes.
Mm-hmm.
At the IRS, they don't play.
Yeah.
Oh, you
No.
owe? You're fired.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, wait. Do you mean if you owed 1 year on your taxes, you would get fired?
you could if you didn't. You were allowed to owe as long as you addressed it right away.
Oh, okay.
So, like,
Got it.
let's say I worked for the agency and I owed.
So they just didn't tolerate delinquent taxes.
And they didn't. Well, you could set up a payment plan or something, but you
Right.
couldn't be like owing and not with a plan in place.
Right.
And if you were, you got fired. So it was okay. You were allowed to owe,
Mm-hmm.
although I'm sure it was frowned upon. Like just
Right.
the talk in the building was don't owe.
Yeah.
Don't owe and don't be late. But I mean, if you owed and you set up a payment plan right away, I knew people who did that. I never did. I've never owed in my life. But if you owed, you could set up a payment plan
Right.
and then and you'd be fine. You'd be covered. But I got when I was working as a karaoke host at a local bar that has since gone out of business because the owner's a twit. Talking about you, Janice.
Okay.
Yeah. Those cookies crumbled, didn't they? Anyway, so but there was a 1099 that was filed in my name, and I worked at the IRS, and I got the notification that the 1099 was filed, and I about crapped myself because Kevin didn't have no 1099 on file with that place. I was W-2 wages, and I thought I'm going to get fired. They're going to act like I didn't report something, so I called the number and I explained to them, and it turned out that the employer, because Janice was a twit, put the wrong social. It had a totally different name, but on the 1099 it had my social.
Oh no!
But it had a totally different name. So it got fixed on my end right away. I don't know what happened to the business or the person
so
who.
Ugly.
I know, but I called them and like, yeah, this clearly isn't you. The name doesn't match, so we're gonna take it off. We're gonna wipe you off of it. And we're gonna send a notice to the employer. If we find out it is you and they have to issue a corrected 1099, we'll cross it when we get there.
Yeah.
And if you don't hear from us, then it's all good to go. I never heard from them. It was all good to go. So,
Wow.
and I worked there for another couple of years after that, so it didn't pop up
Interesting.
again on me. Yeah.
Kind of
Anyway,
similar.
this has been Tax Talk, brought to you by the campaign of Michelle Caldier, reminding you to make sure you claim taxes on all that money you're getting from the dental pack.
Oh, I think it should be
Claim
Bobby Ferguson.
Claim it. Bobby Ferguson can kiss my ass. Okay.
Mhm.
So, Tom, you
Yes.
fell off a roof?
Why I fell through a
Through a
Oh,
roof?
through.
Off a roof?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Was the
Through.
roof The roof on fire. We don't need no.
No.
But you're
Are you talking
okay.
about
You're,
the
you're
roof or the
hobbling around a
concrete?
little bit. I hope you're feeling better.
It just
Did you go see a doctor to get painkillers or anything for your back?
No, it just happened a few hours ago.
Oh, well, you look good.
Oh, well, thank you.
You look great. I'm glad that you're not wearing the shirt with the holes in the nipples. Paul would be sad to miss that.
No, I had to go take a shower after. I fell
Bob
through
Ross running the boards. What's up, Bob?
I was just thinking, rumor has it, at least Tom doesn't have the follow through to go all the way through the roof.
No, just one leg.
No, did you rack yourself? Did you rack the man parts?
Oh, you know it.
Oh, well, no wonder. I thought you were talking a little higher pitch tonight. Congratulations. Now's the time for that American Idol audition.
So bad
Yeah. And then Lori, the CEO. How's your week, Lori?
Just crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, quarter in.
What do you think about the IRS? What do you think, honestly?
As
It don't matter what you think. I'm just kidding.
What do you
I
mean?
always like to
As a
bust out.
business
No,
person?
I don't really care. I just wanted
Oh.
to bust out the rock joke on you.
Got it.
That's all it was.
You
doing.
know, it's kind of interesting about the tax returns from your perspective as an agent
Mhm.
when you were there.
Yeah.
In the business world, a lot of times if your credit is not where it should be, or you have delinquent accounts, like they'll pull a credit check on you,
Who will?
your employer.
Oh yeah, your employer. Yeah.
If you're
I thought you meant the
being-
IRS. I'm like,
No,
wait,
no,
they
no.
don't do that.
No, if you're being considered for like a plum assignment abroad, or
Oh, yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
special project where you'll be in control of lots of money,
Mhm.
budgets, stuff like that. So yeah,
The
Similar.
shipyard pulls your credit.
Oh, do they? Okay.
If you try to get a job at the shipyard and you have outstanding bills, you have anything in collections, they won't hire you.
Okay.
And for those of you that aren't local, we're talking about the Navy shipyard at Bremerton State Naval Shipyard, and they don't do that because they don't want you to be a risk for
Right.
blackmail or for ill-gotten gains, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we can take care of those delinquent bills if you just want to float over some top secret information to the Russian military.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they don't play with that. So somebody very close to me applied for a job and their student loan was in collections. They hadn't put a payment plan in place, and they said nope.
Oh,
They'd offered them the job, then ran it, and they're like, nope, you got student loans, nope.
yeah.
So,
Out.
I think it's a little crazy, but I mean, I understand why. why.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to open with the same thing we opened with on Sunday, which is the same thing we opened with on Wednesday, which is the same thing we opened with the previous Sunday, which is what's going on in the Middle East. It is the most pressing conversation to have. It is the most newsworthy story to have. Although Jim Jordan floundering in his speaker race, we'll get to later in the show. So the big news that's come out this week has been the hospital blast in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to give you the most recent information. This is off of CNN because, it's a website I chose to pull up. But I vetted this through a couple different sources, at least this afternoon. So here's what it's got. Here's what it has. We'll talk about it. A day after a deadly blast tore through a Baptist hospital in Gaza, sparking protests across the region, the United States has released its own assessment of what caused the devastation. Israel laid out evidence that said it shows that a misfire by a militant group, Islamic Jihad, caused the blast. U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday backed that explanation. Surprise. Citing U.S. intelligence. Insert military and intelligence joke here. A spokesman for the National Security Council later said that analysis of overhead imagery, intercepts, and open source information suggested that Israel is not responsible. Palestinian officials and several Arab leaders, nevertheless, have accused Israel of hitting the hospital and amid its ongoing airstrikes in Gaza. Islamic Jihad, a group that rivals Hamas, has denied responsibility. Hundreds, up to 500, is believed to have died in the attack, according to the Hamas-controlled health ministry in Gaza. Images of the bloody aftermath have spurred protests across the region. So, to make this short, here's what we know. We don't know anything.
Yep.
We know that something took out the hospital.
Yep.
We know that the U.S. and Israel have said this was the result of an errant missile strike by al-Jihad, or whatever they're called, Islamic Jihad. Most of the Arab countries in the region are backing the idea that it's Israel's fault. Most of the Israel and their allies are backing that this is not Israel's fault. And I will just say this to anybody in my own personal opinion. I have nothing to back this. If you believe either side at this point, you're an idiot.
Yes.
There is not enough information out right now, and there may never be enough information out in this instance.
Well, in this part of the world.
Well, yeah, in this part of the world, but just with this instance specifically, there is not enough information out, and there may never be enough information out to draw a 100% conclusion on what happened to the hospital. Bob Ross? Oh, Paul is joining us by... I thought you were coming in studio, you nugget.
That's what he's eating.
Oh, I guess he's eating and not talking.
Yeah.
Well, good to hear from you, Paul. Thanks.
Or he can't hear us.
So, you're saying that who do we, how do we vet our sources and trust? I mean, this whole thing, you reasonable people, I think agree. We're just left like, I don't know what to believe. Although, if Israel was the big bad boogeyman monster that wants to kill civilians, you'd think they'd be doing a lot of it well before now. So I'm kind of leaning the direction of maybe their story is more true.
Well, I'm going to say this. I'll say this, because I feel like there's 4 ways this could go, right? There's 4 different angles to this story of what happened to the hospital. Let's just be honest and lay them out, right? Somebody on the Gaza side did it by accident. That's option 1. Somebody on the Israeli side did it by accident. That's option 2. Somebody on the Israeli side did it on purpose. That's option 3. And option 4, somebody on the Gaza side did it on purpose. Right? Those are your 4 options. So do I think Israel would have intentionally hit a hospital? Probably not. I mean, I think I'm pretty safe in saying I don't think Israel would have intentionally hit a hospital. Not knowing the multinational pushback, not knowing the angles, how it would look, the optics, all of it, I don't think Israel would have intentionally hit a hospital. So I'm comfortable pulling that option off the board for me. Maybe not for Tom, maybe not for Lori, maybe not for Paul. Paul, can you hear us now? He's not even moving. So, or he's asleep.
No, that's Frozen Street.
No, I think he's asleep.
Oh, there he is.
Now he's moving. Paul, can you hear us now?
No.
I guess not. So I'm going to pull that off the board. But
I unmuted him.
But did you mute him? Our other 3 options, right? Option number 1, Israel did it by accident. This is a war. Like, this is the other angle. This is the other rabbit hole I want to go down later in this topic. But this is a war. Bad things happened in a war. Innocent people die in a war. Hospitals get bombed in a war. If you don't believe me, please research Dresden in World War II, because there was not a building left in Dresden that hadn't been bombed and firebombed and annihilated, because that's what happens in a war. Bob Ross?
And of course, I understand one of the concerns is we have the Geneva Convention because, rules are what we do follow during war, right? But they're saying,
no.
they're saying like the, I can't think of the name now, the Gaza side.
Yeah.
Hamas.
I knew there was
or
a name
hummus. Hummus, which is what I get at Safeway, but go ahead.
Anyway, they would, we're going to transport some troops and stuff. Let's do it in the ambulance with the red plus on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's hide our missiles in the schools and whatnot. As a side note, you did say Paul would sound best if
we muted his mic.
Yeah,
it was the best segment he's ever been on this show. Listen, listen. Your comment is not lost on me, Bob. And here. Let me take it one step further. I find it incredibly ironic that the side that is screaming, "Don't kill the civilians and protect the innocents," is the same side that crossed over into the Israeli side of the border and kidnapped and killed a whole bunch of innocents and civilians. Like, the hypocrisy from the Palestinian side is glaring. And the fact that people are protesting what Israel's doing while remaining oddly quiet, Rashida Tlaib, about what Hamas did to Israeli civilians and innocents is mind-blowing. The silence is deafening. But hold on, I'm going to get back to my hold on, Bob. Hold on. Chill out. Relax. So, is it believable that Israel did it by accident? Yes. Purposefully, probably not. I don't think. Now, again, you could call me naive and a whole bunch of other words that I can't spell. But naive, okay. But I'm going to pull that off the board. Is it possible Hamas did it by accident? Israel's saying that it was done by an accidental rocket launch from Hamas. Or no, from whatever Jihad or whatever cool nickname they've got. Okay, I can buy that. I think it's less likely that it was by accident, and I'll tell you why. That's an awful big missile. Listen, that ain't one missile. That's not one shoulder-fired missile. That's not one missile off the back of a Jeep. I've played Halo enough to know what a dog missile looks like. I think it's far less likely than not that was an errant missile, unless it was from
North Korea.
No, North Korea missile
Hezbollah.
travels all the way over across China, Iran, and I think it's
saying if it was North Korean made.
Well, yeah, I think it's far less likely unless it was some type of not a Scud. They don't have Scuds, but I mean that size of it would have to be a pretty damn big missile to take out a hospital. Okay,
It was in the parking lot.
Well,
I know.
But it took out the whole hospital, right?
No.
No. Okay, is Paul back?
Yeah.
Can we hear him now?
Yeah. Can we hear me? Okay.
Hold it. Ready? Finally, Paul has come back to Outlaw Radio. Go ahead, Paul.
Wow.
Popcorn. None of the hospital got taken out.
No, was it all the parking lot then?
It was the parking lot. Yeah. What's interesting was there's a great interview. I've not had a chance to finish watching yet. Piers Morgan, about 6-7 hours ago, interviewed the United Nations, the Palestinian representative or the Gaza representative to the United Nations. So I'm looking forward when the show's over tonight to getting a chance to go back and watch that. Because to hear Piers Morgan lay all of the evidence out and to see the look on his face was, well, absolutely priceless. It just was. It was truly priceless. He got longer in the face as Piers kept explaining it. Yeah, it was just it was wonderfully macabre and sad because of the testament that it really shows. But it is what it is.
So, Paul, I was laying out the 4 scenarios that could be behind this, and so let me recap because you missed part of it. So, option number 1 is Israel did it by accident. Option number 2 is Israel did it on purpose. Option number 3 is somebody on the Gaza side did it by accident, and option number 4 is somebody on the Gaza side did it on purpose. Right? So, those are our 4 possibilities. I've taken Israel doing it on purpose out of the equation. I don't think they would purposely hit a hospital. Now, I might be naive, stupid, drunk, and or high, but I don't think they would. I don't think Israel would purposely hit a hospital unless they had really credible intel that there was a whole bunch of really bad Hamas people that were hiding in the basement of the hospital, and then they might. But then I think they'd release it. I think they'd come out and say, well, look, Hamas was hiding their senior executive leadership in the basement of the hospital. They're cloaking themselves around civilians to try to keep themselves safe. Sorry, but if that's what you do, sorry about your luck. So I've taken that off the board. Bob, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's the 5th option that, now that Paul's here, we can explore. Aliens.
Oh, all right, hold on. Tinfoil hat. Aliens.
Yeah. And also realize Hamas upper, the sea level execs, if you will. Yeah, they're not in Gaza. They're like in Dubai. They're not there.
No, not at this point. They're not.
Oh, not ever.
No, not at this. Or they're in Jordan among people who support them or something. Yeah,
they're in Dubai.
Okay, so I've taken that off, Paul. I've also taken off the idea that I think this was. Well, I won't take that off now then, because it wouldn't take a huge missile to take out the parking lot, especially with vehicles and fuel and all of that. So that leaves us with 3 options. Of those 3 options, and I'm going to ask the whole panel, what do you guys think is most likely? That Israel did it by accident, that somebody on the Hamas side did it by accident, that somebody on the Hamas side did it on purpose as a way to stoke anger internationally against Israel? Because I find it odd that hasn't been talked about at all. And I'm not a rocket scientist or a genius, yet I am a constitutional scholar, but I'm not a rocket scientist or a genius, and even I can see the pliability of that argument. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I think that there's enough evidence out there, considering they have intercepted radio calls between middle upper management suck ups in Hamas and the lonely dude firing the stick with gas in it, where he specifically talks about the rocket misfired and it landed in the parking lot next to the hospital. I think it's pretty clear what happened. Of course, that could have been staged, and those radio intercepts could have been staged, no doubt. So, but they do make it sound like, you know, and a WTF moment, you know, hey, I pushed the launch button and the mortar tube fell over, you know, kind of thing, right? So, you know, that's what it looks like. I don't think that, I mean, considering there's Al Jazeera video footage of the moment the rocket launched and the trajectory and then seeing it land. And the reason why it wasn't an explosion is because it was still filled with rocket fuel, right? So it caught a lot of things on fire, including all the cars in the parking lot. But the building is still relatively intact. I find the bigger story out of all of this, not that one of their homemade rockets misfired, and not that it landed in a hospital parking lot, but that every tipped over to the left news source in the United States ran with the story that Israel fired on a hospital and killed 300 to 500 Palestinians. And the worst part is that they all said that the information was coming directly from the Gaza Health Ministry. Translation, Hamas. But none of them bothered to check out their source. None of them bothered to check out why. Why is that a big story? Because it completely harpooned the left's narrative, right? Yeah. I mean, they were like Moby Dick for this thing. It's like, look at what we're going to say about Israel. They bombed the hospital.
It's like walking into the kitchen and catching 5-year-old Timmy with a spoon in his hand and an open jar of peanut butter on the counter, and the dog is sitting on the floor licking its mouth because somebody fed him peanut butter, and you ask Timmy, well, who fed the dog peanut butter? Well, I didn't. I mean, that's like asking Hamas any questions about anything that goes on in that area of the world. Like, you can't believe a damn thing. They say they're holding the spoonful of peanut butter in their hands.
Do you remember the old God, I hate to use this analogy, but it's funny.
Facebook, so say what you will.
I do you remember the old joke that was done by Bill Cosby, where he said that little Timmy was getting in the closet and getting cookies, and mom comes out and says, Timmy, what are you doing? I told you no cookies before bed. I was getting it for you, mommy. Well, I don't want a cookie. Well, can I have it? You know, like that's totally what I envisioned, you know, as I've watched this play out. Well, listened to it really play out over the last 24 hours. So,
yeah, I don't remember that joke, but I do remember the time Bill Cosby asked me if I wanted a drink and how it tasted.
Just don't try the barbecue sauce.
Here's the deal. What was the thing you used to say about pudding? What was it?
The pudding in the... Yeah, I don't remember.
The pudding and the pudding pop. Anyway, sorry, we're going for low-hanging fruit now. I have a hard time believing. Listen, I got a real, and I want to believe Israel didn't do this. So this is not an Israel thing. This is purely faith in our own government.
Oh, that's your own bias and racism showing there, Kevin. No, you're a horrible person.
I want to believe that Israel did not bomb a hospital on purpose. I'm sorry. That makes me a horrible person. I have no faith. When Joe Biden comes out and says, well, our intelligence has verified that, like, what? I don't have any faith that Joe Biden has verified anything. Like, I honestly firmly believe that this government, and that's Democrat or Republican, would literally fall over themselves backwards to back Israel publicly, no matter what.
I think you're right about that.
I mean, I think even if it was a nuke and it had Benjamin Netanyahu's signature on it, and we saw him pull the pin himself, the Biden administration would still come out and say, well, we don't believe it was from Israel. We think it was from Hamas. I just...
Yeah, I know. I think you raise a completely valid point. The government of the U.S. would bend over. They would bend over backwards to support anything Israel said. I'm there with you, which means everything should be suspect.
Yeah, I need more intel than Joe said so.
Right.
All right, we're gonna go to break. While we're in break, we'll see if there's any witty comments in chat.
We're coming back from break here in about 20.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sakes, Phil. All right. We missed the going to break, but we're about to come back from break.
All right, 10 seconds.
This is Outlaw Radio, brought to you by Black Ring Spirits, because Phil clearly had a bunch of drinks at Black Ring Spirits. Back after this. I was not going to swear on the Facebook side tonight, I promised. Myself, I was going to do my best to watch my potty mouth because it's something I'm working on. But then Phil missed break, and I just totally was like, F this. Joe Biden. I got my aluminum foil hat on.
You can't take personal responsibility.
What I'm saying is it's your fault, Phil. I'm going to blame it completely on Phil. Bob Ross. It's all Phil's fault. All right. Outlaw Radio, K-Dog, Black Tom, St. Paul by teleconference on the Black Ring Spirits video conference line.
Can we put that as a tagline up on top on the video screen? But Black Ring Spirits video line.
There you go.
I think we should. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should. And I think the tag for it should be, when you've had too much to drink, call in. All right. Anyway. Paul, the other... Sorry.
You all right?
Yeah. Went down the wrong pipe. Paul, the other thing I want to say is this. I understand that we don't want to intentionally target civilians in a war. Like, that makes sense to me, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we don't want innocent people to die. But isn't that what war is?
Yes.
I mean,
I think it's an issue. I've heard the argument a lot in the last couple of days about the idea of proportionality. Right. And right. I understand that argument. I really do. And actually, I kind of agree with that argument. However,
you're drunk, but continue.
No, listen, in principle, I agree with it. But how do you prescribe proportionality to, a bunch of children that were burned alive, right? How do you, that's 38 children. That's going to cost you 86 adults. How do you?
That's not how proportionality works.
Oh, really, Phil? I had no idea. That's the point. That's the point. I'm saying, how do you ever ascribe any kind of numerical value to a brutal attack of civilians? Like, are you guys aware right now that the last 24 hours the United States military has stopped 3 drone attacks on our soldiers in Iraq?
Wait, we still have soldiers in Iraq?
Small detachments, but yeah. Yeah.
I can't ever tell if Phil is serious or not. I'm not being able to see his face. His voice is always so monotone. But I mean, if you didn't know that, yeah, we also have them we actually have Syria. We have forces in Syria as well. But Iran launched 3 drones in the last 24 hours. And these are suicide drones, the same kind, or kamikaze drones. They're the same kind being used by Ukraine and Russia, right? 3 of them are for our troops in Iraq, shot them down before they were able to make contact and do any damage. So the idea that Israel is overstepping its bounds by pushing too far and killing too many people, and everybody that I've heard that supports Palestine, that's their argument going into whatever they're talking to. There's strangely enough, Dan Abrams tonight was interviewing Cenk Younger, I can never pronounce the dude's last name. He's still a douche waffle. I don't know, whatever his last name is. And I don't normally make fun of people's names, but I hope he's more intelligent than his name makes him sound. Okay. I'm just saying that the dude, listen, if you want to watch some entertaining videos, go watch the Young Turks on the night Donald Trump was elected president. That crap will make you smile and laugh and pee yourself all at the same time, guaranteed. Anyway, so Cenk is on there with Dan Abrams, and the argument always comes back to the same thing. Everybody, no matter what talk show they're on or everything, it comes back to the idea of proportionality, right? Well, you've already killed 3,000 Palestinian civilians. Well, how do you know that? Well, because that's the number that's reported. But you just said that you didn't believe any women had been raped or babies had been killed because you didn't see any evidence of it, right? And that's the prevailing theory, right? Well, we didn't see any of the babies' bodies. We didn't see any women were raped. How can you prove it? We think it's just Israeli propaganda. No, you want it to be Israeli propaganda. right? What do I got to do? Take you in and show you a deceased woman, you know, and let you run a rape kit on her? Like, what do we have to do?
Nope. Paul's got to go take care of his dog.
Some good radio there.
Yeah. But no, listen, Paul has a really good point, because the people on the left that want to discount this have accused Israel of over dramatizing what happened, over dramatizing the number dead, and over dramatizing the atrocities. And if you believe that, I don't know what to tell you. Israel did something unprecedented, which is they released photos and videos. Mm-hmm. They released, now a lot of people, well, those photos are staged. Maybe. I mean, I guess I guess they could have been staged. And if you're that cynical, then why would you believe anything that the Palestinians are saying? Like, can you honestly tell me that the Israelis are staging things and the Palestinians aren't? This is a region of the world that has been caustic and deadly for the better part of the last 100 years. Okay. Well, hold on. I want to be factual. The better part of the last 80 years. Okay. Ever since 1947. Okay. And if you go back throughout millennium, it has been on again, off again. Let's kill each other. Right. So this idea that one side is inherently bad or one side is inherently right is completely flawed, because neither side is 100% correct and neither side is 100% bad. Mm-hmm. I'll be deemed an Israel hater, but I'll say it anyway. The Palestinian people, not Hamas. Let's take Hamas off the table. The Palestinian people have a valid reason to feel oppressed and persecuted and occupied based on what experience they are living in. Because they are. Okay? And you cannot occupy or oppress a people and not expect them to want to rise up and not expect them to want to take action against you. You just can't do that.
Yes, you can. Give them a casino.
It is shut up. Meanwhile, in Poland, there are no casinos, Paul. But
they're not oppressed.
But you cannot. The Poles have been oppressed a lot, though. They just like it.
Everybody has kicked the Polish ass. Every person within 360 degrees of Poland has beat them down like a red-headed stepchild.
Yeah, there were some overweight German women that even oppressed Poland at one point. Listen, here's the issue, though, right? The issue is that there is some truth to what Hamas is saying, right? In order for a cult or a terrorist group or a fringe anything to exist in the world, there has to be an element of truth behind what they're selling, and then they spin it, right? Like Donald Trump. A lot of us believe Donald Trump was a whack-a-mole. But there were elements of truth. Turn off your microphone while you yawn, Phil. Jeez. I know we're boring you over there. But Donald Trump is a whack-a-mole. A lot of us believe that. But there were elements of truth of the things that he was saying and the nerves he was hitting in the population that gave it legs, right? Hamas is taking elements of truth, which is the oppression and the occupation of the Palestinian people, and then they yield that as a weapon to militarize and turn normal everyday Palestinian men specifically, but women too, into terrorists. But they're working with elements of truth. Hitler took elements of truth of what happened in Germany after World War I and used that to mobilize a nation against the world. All you have to have are elements of truth. When you 100%. Don't have elements of truth, you become flat earthers, where nobody believes you and they make fun of you because there's no element of truth for anybody to get behind that's even possibly plausible or believable.
Or followers of QAnon.
QAnon, yeah. Well, but Paul, we know people, and I won't mention who, but we know people who firmly believed in that.
Love
intelligent,
you, Mom.
rational people that are smart and educated and learned, but they still believed in QAnon.
Is Andy in there tonight?
No. And I'll tell you this right now. I think it is easier for someone to believe the cause of the Palestinian people, and I think it's easier to convert people to Hamas than it would be to convert people to QAnon. Because the premise of QAnon
you're
is
totally right. Yeah.
The premise
Yeah.
of QAnon is that John F. Kennedy Jr. was going to come back to life and lead the nation. I mean, that was.
I heard a good one the other day, Kevin. You'd appreciate this one. That this lady was making these videos was Marilyn Monroe. She didn't actually commit suicide and die, and in fact, General Michael Flynn is her love child. I was, I didn't know whether to pee excessively like a dog on a fire hydrant, or laugh uncontrollably, or cry. And I want to absolutely thank the Palestinian people, Hamas, and leftist news organizations in America for proving to me, after this idea with this rocket that hit, was fired by the Israelis and hit this hospital. I want to thank all of those organizations and individuals, because they allowed me to believe that there is a group of people in this country more stupid than the QAnon followers. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I sincerely thought people I knew and loved were at the bottom of the barrel. Not anymore. Not anymore.
Listen though, even if this was done by Hamas or this jihad group or whatever it is, they're still going to blame Israel. Well, listen, they wouldn't have to be firing missiles if Israel wasn't invading them and bombing them.
I will tell you how the tide has turned.
Even if this was a crackpot terrorist with a missile that went the wrong way, even if it was an accident, it's still Israel's fault, because Israel was shelling them and they're just trying to defend themselves. I mean, there will be people who will say that.
There are, but this is how far the tide has turned, because as the evidence came out over the last 12 hours, it became really irrefutable. Okay. This is how much the tide has turned. MSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, and CBS were all touting how Israel did this, and there were 300 to 500 dead, et cetera, et cetera. By this evening, as I was driving home, listening to Dan Abrams on News Nation, he had on, of all people, Brian, I got hit in the back of the head with a 2x4 Stelter. Okay. Brian Stelter, formerly of.
No, he's stupid.
He's a smarmy little slut boy. I swear to all that is holy. That dude is like what happened when Humpty Dumpty and Madonna had a love child. That guy's freaking out there, man. He is.
Wait,
don't even get.
And Humpty Dumpty had a love child. No, I would say Costanza and Humpty Dumpty. Costanza from Seinfeld and Humpty Dumpty had a love child.
Well, that's true. I mean, we don't really get to challenge Humpty Dumpty's pronouns now, so could be. Yeah. I would suggest, when Brian Stelter comes on and chastises CNN and MSNBC for not checking its sources and not following up on a story, when Brian freaking Stelter is your barometer of righteousness in your storytelling, you've gone astray somewhere, man. Big time. So
I just love his photos where he tries to look serious. And he ends up looking like he's trying to deadeye a Big Mac.
No.
Oh God, yeah.
Like he's constipated.
Constipated.
It looks like he's looking at a Big Mac and having fantasies. He's just such a weird cat, man. I'm serious.
For sure. Hey, I'm going to put my mic on mute. I'm still listening, but I got to let my dogs out, and I don't want you guys to hear the noises.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you guys a question. I'll ask Paul this when he comes back. Where do you guys draw the line on civilian casualties in this conflict specifically? Paul talked about proportionality, that some people want to argue the response should be proportional. And I'll give my opinion about it in a second. But Tom and Lori, what is a reasonable, or is there a reasonable impact of loss of civilian life in this conflict? To what level is Israel justified in your mind to accidentally or purposefully, depending on the circumstance, to take out civilians? Or is it zero tolerance? No civilian should be killed.
That's not reasonable for warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair. Okay.
Unfortunately, warfare in this day and age has gotten too touchy-feely. War is ugly and should be avoided at all costs.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And if it can't be avoided, then go to war. And did the United States try to avoid civilian targets when we dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan?
No, they certainly did not.
No, we certainly didn't.
We didn't even warn them first.
No. If you're going to go to war, go to war.
Yeah. Keep talking.
But like I said, it's just, it's ugly. It should be avoided.
Mhm.
Warfare is awful.
I would agree. But I want to get back to my question though. Is there a line
No,
where the acceptable loss of civilian casualties becomes too much?
no, no. Like I said, I mean, warfare is. This isn't even really a war. I mean, how
do you feel it's not a war?
There's 30,000 extremist militants living amongst 2.2 million people, and it's not a war in the traditional sense of the word. So I understand the problem of trying to figure out how to get to 30 or 40,000 combatants hiding in 2.2 million innocent people. Well, I guess 2.17 million people or whatever. You do the math.
I'm going to disagree with you 1,000%. This is a war. If you're in not even southern Israel, if you're in the Israel that's bordered up against the Gaza Strip, or if you're in the Gaza Strip, this is a war.
It is violent activity.
What is the difference between what's going on there and a war? I know, Lori, you have a response to it. I'm going to make sure I get to it. I won't forget you. What is the difference between a war and what's happening?
Because one side, the Israeli side, is beholden to the idea of the Geneva Convention, but Hamas is a terrorist organization. They are not going to be beholden to the Geneva Convention. It's a very different thing. Hamas will chop the heads off babies. The Israelis are they're beholden to a set of rules. So I don't think it's a war. It's like an ugly spot for the Israeli government. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to leave it alone. All right, go ahead. Because you and I will go down a rabbit hole with this. War is a war is a war is a war, and people are dying because it's a war, and weapons are being used, and missiles are being fired, and bombs are being dropped, and
certainly, I mean, it is unfortunate, ugly violence, and too many civilians will be hurt, and not enough combatants on both sides, because Hamas will attack Israel with no constraint. And Israel will retaliate, and there are the ratio of civilians to combatants in Gaza is just it's so turned on its side that there's going to be loss of innocent life. It's just ugly.
Agreed. Okay, Lori, what is the acceptable line to cross?
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you clarify?
Okay. All right.
Can you clarify your question? Is it just Hamas and Israel, or are you talking about the other players that are on the fringes right now, such as us on Israel's side, Iran on Hamas side, as well as Hezbollah?
I think right now we just leave this to
Middle Eastern countries?
To Hamas and Israel because they're your main players.
Okay.
Iran is not directly taking action that we've been made aware of, although I wouldn't be surprised if it shows.
Right.
And the U.S. should not be taking any direct action, although we do have the Rapid Response Marine Team there. We've got 2 carrier fleets there. We certainly could bomb the crap out of some stuff if we chose to. But so Israel and Hamas.
Okay. Do I feel this is a war? Yes.
Thank you for agreeing with me.
I totally feel like
right,
this is
always.
a war. I'm surprised at the restraint that Israel is showing right now. I think that they are carefully treading between what they want to do and how they want to become a more respected player on the international scene, i.e., respecting the Geneva Convention. But they're mad, and rightly so. I mean, babies were, their heads chopped off in front of their parents, and then the parents killed. I mean, just atrocities. And, unfortunately, the Palestinian people that are still living in Gaza, they're stuck. Do I think it's right how they've been second, third class citizens? No. But here we are. What's happened has happened. And now there's going to be some sort of, retribution, a ground war or whatever. I think that Israel is trying really, really hard to be targeted in what their response is going to be on the ground. And I think that's why they're holding restraint. They waited for Biden to come. Then the hospital strike parking lot thing happened, and Biden had to cut his trip short. So now I think all bets are off. I think we're going to see a lot of action.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is that the one thing that feeds that this might have been purposely by Hamas, whatever you want to call them, is that Biden was coming to meet with Jordan.
Yeah.
And meet with other Arab leaders in Jordan. And everybody knew it. Like it was reported in the news. You know, he didn't even keep it a secret. He said, I'm going to go meet with all the regional leaders. And I mean, remember, Hamas did the entire attack in Israel to try to make sure they derailed the peace plan that was about to go into place
between Saudi Arabia
with Saudi Arabia. And what happened? It happened. And then Saudi Arabia said, well, we're out. We got to step away because we know that Israel's going to mess some people up. So, and then what happened when the hospital blew up? Jordan canceled the summit, and there were no meetings. Like I don't mean to sound like tinfoil hat guy because I'm really not. That's not my role on this show. That's Paul and Lori.
Well, thank you.
But look, the fact of the matter is, it makes sense to me that this would have been purposeful by Hamas to break up the regional plan of all the leaders that were going to be against them and meet with the United States and make it not happen. And if anybody can't see that, I mean, it fits with the mode of what they did with the terror attack. Let's do something big and bold to stop whatever we don't want from happening. Frankly, what should have happened in K-Dog's world, where I'm always right, is that Saudi Arabia still should have signed the deal after the fact to not let the terrorists control the outcome. And all the Middle Eastern leaders still should have met in Jordan after the hospital bombing to prove that the terrorists aren't going to have any say in the outcome of that. But nope.
Who do you think's pulling the strings over there? You know, why so skittish?
Well, skittish on whom? I mean,
all the countries. I mean, if something goes down, they back up. They're like, "Oh, not me. I'm not getting involved."
So the problem is, who are you talking about? Skittish with who? The U.S. and Israel are one side. I don't feel like they're skittish at all about talking or doing things publicly.
I'm talking like Saudi Arabia. I'm talking about Jordan. I mean, why aren't people looking at Jordan's past, where they have gone into the Palestinian people and slaughtered them?
Here's the problem.
Nobody talks about it.
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
Jordan, Saudi Arabia have a huge percentage of Muslims, right? They're predominantly Muslim countries. They follow Muslim law, all of that.
Yeah.
The one thing they cannot afford is a public perception that they are turning their back on Muslims. So backing Israel in peace talks is one thing.
Right.
The normalization of relations, that's one thing. They can get around that. Saudi Arabia especially has really tried to get on good terms with the Western world. But siding with them in the time of conflict, when they know that Israel is about to kill a whole bunch of Muslims, is not public perception that the crown in Saudi Arabia or the leadership in Jordan or any of these other Muslim nations want to face. They don't want the public backlash. So even if they would support Israel in that, right? I mean, keep in mind that Iran is really on their own in the region. Iran doesn't really have any support from any other nations in the region. They're uber extremist and on their own.
Yeah.
Okay. So even if Saudi Arabia privately, even if the crown privately was like, yep, you guys are going to have to go in and just take out Hamas. They're bad dudes. They would never lead with that publicly because of the public fallout.
Yeah.
Let me answer this question that I asked you guys, and we'll see if Paul's ready to answer too. This is a war. There is no line in the sand for me on civilian casualties. There's just not. I mean, obviously, I would hope and pray that it would be zero, right? I would want it to be zero. But I am an intelligent, rational human being, shut up, who understands regardless.
History, yeah.
Well, and who just understands logistics, right? We know that Hamas is hiding terrorists in places where civilians are at.
Yeah.
We know that Hamas is keeping terrorists from leaving the northern Gaza Strip to head south, even after the Israelis said, yo, get out, right? The
You
fact
mean-
that
you mean
Israel,
the civilians. You said terrorists.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hamas is keeping the civilians from leaving,
Mm-hmm.
even though Israel said to go, because Hamas knows if they go, we're screwed.
Yep.
No.
And hold on, let me finish. And
Okay.
Israel has shown tremendous restraint in not sending in ground troops yet. Let's just be honest. If I was the leader, I would have already gone in and I would have just leveled everything. This is why I'm not a world leader. I will not run for office. You should not even put me in charge of the port of Manchester, okay? Because I would sail my ships out as an armada and we would take over Brownsville, okay? the Israelis have shown tremendous restraint.
Mm-hmm.
But the end result is if every single civilian in Gaza Strip gets killed, it would be tremendously sad.
Yeah.
It would probably result in war crimes.
Yeah.
It would be a tremendous disaster of epic proportions.
Don't you think it would escalate further, though?
But you'd probably see more militants in other countries.
Yeah.
But is it understandable, given the fact that this is a war and Israel is fully aware if they leave any member of Hamas alive, they will be attacked again?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can't blame Israel for doing whatever they need to do to protect themselves. And frankly, anybody who thinks otherwise is a Pollyanna, uneducated, does not understand history or the world idiot. Because it is the only way that Israel protects themselves. Using the logic of the left, Paul, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back.
Using the logic of the left, we would have never won World War II. No. And we were attacked first.
Mm-hmm.
We had never won World War II. I can already imagine the Hollies of the world. What? You're firebombing Dresden? What about all the children? What? You dropped bombs on Tokyo? What about all the children? What about all the children? Well, what about the countless Chinese children that died when the Japanese invaded China? Like it's just it just blows my mind. Tom, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, so World War II, World War II, because Korea didn't go so well. But World War II and on, or stopping at World War II, every conflict that we've been in, we've tried to limit the loss of life to civilians. And those conflicts haven't gone well.
Since World War II?
I don't.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't. I think politics have played a major point in that. But we are whether you're Christian or not, we are a nation of Christian values and moral, and we try to place ourselves at a high level of moral character. Doesn't mean we don't fall short. But if you want to know why we try to limit life has meaning to us as a nation, as a culture, as a society, right?
Yes.
We value the sanctity of life, except for the people on the left who believe that abortion is okay. But other than that, for the most part, look, I'm just giving you my opinion. Okay.
I don't think anything about this country values life. We don't value the lives of our veterans that are homeless on the streets. We won't give them appropriate care. The whole abortion.
Well, now you're espousing a political belief that's not really backed up by facts. If we didn't value life as a Christian nation, Kevin, this is going to hit below the belt, so I apologize in advance. We'd have wiped Native Americans out when they resisted, but we didn't. We tried.
Hold on, we'll handle this on the Facebook side. Hold on, we're going to break. Outlaw Radio. K-Dog, Black Tom, Lori, Bob Ross, St. Paul, the voice of incorrectness. Oh. Back after this on Mega Talk. I would just like to remind you that if you like the show, be a friend and tell a friend. If you don't like the show,
pretend it never happened.
Pretend it never happened. Yep.
Click the like and subscribe buttons, motherfuckers. Like and subscribe.
Okay, Paul. Go ahead.
Oh shit, we're on Facebook, right? I hope
we're on Facebook. You can swear now, Paul.
Yeah.
Look,
otherwise I'd be freaking out right now.
Yeah, you were on the right side.
Oh, update the board.
Oh, hey, we're past the halfway point.
We're past the halfway point. We've now made it to 40. What is it? 46 days.
I don't know what's today.
No, I think it's 42 because we forgot.
We're at 53.
No,
Sunday.
I updated that Sunday.
Oh, you
So
did?
we're at
Oh, okay.
47
40.
days. Okay. Oh, it's 53 days. We got 47 days to go
Yep.
till we can do a show without pants. Listen, Paul, I hear what you're saying. And I hear what you're saying, Bob. I hear what you're saying. and the idea that we value life in this country, I'm just going to tell you that we don't.
Well, I'm not. Look, I'm not disagreeing with your opinion. That's your opinion.
I think we do what is politically expedient. I think we do what is socially acceptable. But if we valued life in this country, here's some things that would not be happening. Abortion would not be happening.
I agree.
At least not at the scope in which it is now. Again, I've still got my gray areas with that, but we can talk about that later. Okay. The homeless issue would not be a problem. Lack of mental health services would not be a problem. The way we treat our veterans would not be a problem. The fact that our medical system is geared towards profit and not towards providing care would not be a problem. The fact that underserved minority communities cannot get basic general medical services would not be a problem. We'd be treating people for diabetes and hypertension before they found themselves in the ER, but that's a problem. Like, I don't think humans in general do a really good job of valuing life unless it's the people that are within their sphere or scope that they have a vested relationship in.
That's human nature.
I'm not debating that, but I'm just saying the idea that somehow us as a Christian nation, we value life.
So listen,
that's what I hear, but I don't see a lot of evidence to back it up.
Well, you've raised a lot of incredibly valid points, but all of them, each of those issues in a microcosm has a reasonable explanation. A lot of those reasonable explanations come from the fact that we not only value life, we are also a capitalistic society, and capitalism has its own dark side that comes with it, right? Not unlike anything else, right? Communism has its own dark side that comes with it. Socialism has its own dark side, and so on and so forth. So the reason why I say that we as a society value human life is based on the historical context of the things that we have done as a nation to show that, right? And I used Native Americans as an example, right? Yeah. When a stronger, more powerful group of people comes into an area, which has happened everywhere on planet Earth, right? You either assimilate. If you're the indigenous group, you either assimilate or you get wiped out. It's one or the other, except in this country.
Well, but that didn't happen.
And a little bit in Canada. What do you mean? It did happen though.
No, the Palestinians weren't wiped out or assimilated at all. They were given back some of their own land and said, "Okay, you guys be over here, and we're going to keep an eye on you."
But that doesn't. What does that have?
Exactly like the Native Americans. Here's your reservation land.
Hold on. What is? How does that play into what I was saying about how
I'm just saying
we're a Christian nation with Christian values?
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, it hasn't happened in other places in the world.
Listen. Why did that happen in Gaza? Okay, listen. Native Americans were not suicide bombing parts of the United States in order to get reservations. Okay, that's not what was happening. I mean, it was completely different set of circumstances. So listen. Look at how we handled the rebuilding of Germany. Look at how we handled the occupation and the rebuilding of Japan. Okay, all of those things were done with the idea that we are a Christian nation. We have a set of morals and standards with which we wanted to operate under those occupations. We wanted to rebuild what we had destroyed. How nuts is that?
Hold on.
Nobody else on planet Earth has done that.
I'm going to respond to that when we come back because we're up against it coming back. So hold on. It's Outlaw Radio.
You don't have a fucking response.
Hey, Paul, look at the camera.
Network.com.
Look at the camera, Paul. We're back after this on Megaton.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside. inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright.
Hey, let's nominate Jim Jordan one more time for the speakership.
What kind of feeling?
Turn that up, Phil. Turn that up. Come on. Never get down. Come on, Tom. Get down, Tom. Come on. Shake that booty thing. Come on, Paul. Shake that booty thing.
No.
Shake your groove. Oh, he's playing with his man boobs. Shake your groove thing. I don't care what kind of a bad day I'm having. This song makes me happy every time I hear it.
Oh, it's a good song. I'm too sore to shake the booty.
Well,
The
when
booty's
you get home to
broken.
your wife, she's going to need to make you a hot toddy or something, run the bath, get you a warm bath going.
Mm-hmm.
You put a little bubble bath in there, man. Real men take bubble baths. Don't.
I like a good bubble
Yeah,
bath
take a good bubble bath, relax, and do all that.
with my Hello.
Fuck you, Kevin. I like bubble baths.
What'd you say?
I said, "Fuck you, Kevin. I like bubble
I
baths."
thought you said a bad word.
So did I.
All right. Okay.
So can I give some credence to
Hold
what
on.
to your point,
Let's
Kevin?
recap what we
Okay.
said for those on AM that missed it.
St. Paul's brilliant. Kevin is dumb. I know.
Paul
That's what you
was
said.
explaining why he believed that as a Christian nation, we have shown throughout our history that we value life. And
We're
some of the
generally a
examples-
Christian nation. Yeah.
Well, we're a Christian nation. If you're not Christian, you can leave.
Wow.
Get out. I'll show you the
Typical Christian.
typical.
We're so tolerant of everybody except if you don't believe what we believe.
Stop it, you Templar.
What?
Anyway,
Yeah,
listen.
look what the Catholic Church did to us, you schmuck.
And to the Indians. Some of Paul's examples were that the Americans didn't wipe the Native Americans off the face of the earth or force them to assimilate. Paul also mentioned the rebuilding of Germany and Japan after World War II. And as he said, what nations do that? Because we're a Christian nation and we value life, we value the rebuild. Is that an accurate summation?
Yeah, it's because it is because as a generally as a Christian nation, right? We have a set of morals. We value certain things about life. We value love. We value and cherish relationships and children. We don't believe in indiscriminately killing of civilians, right? So this idea tries to carry us forward. In the Army, there are a couple things that happen. So when you get to boot camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first week you are there, you are learning the laws of land warfare. First thing. Why? Because it is vitally important in the United States military that you understand what rules govern your conduct and behavior, what the moral values are of the United States military. Week 2 is first aid and medical training. So you're 2 weeks in and you haven't even seen a gun yet, right? The idea being you have to learn how to save a life. You have to learn the value of a life before you can be trained to take a life. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm right. Moving on.
Let me tell you where you're wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
All of your examples are not based in the valuing of human life, Paul. And let me explain why. The refusal to slaughter the Native Americans was more based off of public perception and the risk that the public would rebel at the thought of just wiping people out, more than it was about
I've never
valuing
read that,
human
but I'll
life.
take your word for it. I will take your word for that. I've never
And the
read that.
entire reason why we rebuilt Germany and Japan, you want to know why? You're a student of history, you know this. Because after World War I, the Treaty of Versailles nearly practically guaranteed that Germany was going to be a third world nation for the next 20 years. Because we stripped them of their industry, we stripped them of their military, we stripped them of their ability to do anything because we didn't want them to rise up and be pricks again.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that was a bad idea. So what we did was rebuilt Japan and Germany, making sure that the governments that were in place liked us and were our allies, so we could alliance build and region build and make sure that those two nations did not rise up to F with us again. It wasn't about valuing human life. If we valued human life, we would have been in Sudan during the massacres. If we valued human life, we would have stopped the Chinese from wiping out all the people in Tibet. If we valued human life, we would have stepped in so many other places around the world. But our response has been, nope, not our circus, not our clowns.
Listen, isolationist theory has been part of politics of this country since its inception, right?
But
I don't disagree with you on that.
Spits in the face of we value life.
I think that is a moral argument that you could have. You can have that argument. Yeah. And I'm but just having the argument doesn't prove it one way or the other, right? That's just something that you're having an argument over. And listen. Let's turn to the intelligent guy in the room. Lori, what say you?
The intelligent guy in the room.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, actually,
I was going to say Tom, and then it dawned on me Lori's smarter than all of us. So.
Very funny.
She does have to think about the beads going on, though. Go ahead, Lori.
Hey, you weren't supposed to talk about that. But anyways.
By the way, I do want to let everybody know that if you're going into those Christmas, like what are those called? The Christmas bazaars and stuff. They have it like Kitsap County Fairgrounds and all those that come up during the holiday. Yeah, all the pop-up bazaars and stuff. Look for Lori's Bead Shop. Okay, Lori, go ahead.
So Lori, can I suggest if Daddy cut you off one more time, say something. Don't take that.
I'm not taking that.
I'm going to poop on the hood of your ugly car. Go ahead.
You guys. So I have a question for all of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking about the region, is it possible that Israel is more of a progressive, forward-thinking nation, and the other nations are scared that their populace will learn those ways and become more forward thinking, and they lose their control. They lose, and especially in terms of, the Muslim, I can only think of in Iran, it's the Ayatollahs, all of the scholarly religious figureheads lose their control if any of their populace starts following Israel, because Israel is so close.
That's a great point, Lori. See, smartest person in the room.
Corey said, Lori, you're dead on in the chat.
Oh, thanks, Corey. Corey and and Jane have a mutual admiration society going on.
I'm gonna push back a little bit.
Sure.
And say that I would not accuse Israel of being forward thinking. Right? Because there's still a very traditional culture, a very traditional nation, a very traditional religion, right? I would never accuse them of being liberal or forward thinking. But I would say that they are more tolerant. They are more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
They are more willing to be open to other cultures.
There are plenty of people in Israel who do not practice. Yeah. They're Jewish, but they're not Jewish in religion.
So in that respect, I would say that they're a more open culture, but excuse me, I hesitant to call them forward thinking. They seem to me to be
in comparison to their neighbors.
In comparison to their neighbors
in the regional area, I'm saying in comparison.
It's like Barack Obama in an Amish community. In comparison to their neighbors, right?
That's why I'm talking about.
Phil, you're a resident Israeli.
Living in an Amish paradise.
Oh, that's such a great song.
All I can think of is white and nerdy, but anyway.
White and nerdy.
So Israel, well established, so it's a common misconception. Yes, it's made up of people who are Jewish, as probably 80% Jew, 20% other.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like cultural, what do you call it? Heritage or ethnicity,
right? Not religion.
Religion. Now, in Israel, you'll find maybe 40% Orthodox, and then everything else is pretty well. Like here in the States, you're going to have, conservative, Orthodox, Hasidic, all sorts.
Right.
So anyway, point is they're frankly a little more secular. Like as a nation, they don't allow proselytizing.
What? Hold on. Define proselytizing. That's not in the Constitution. I don't know what it is. What is proselytizing?
They don't allow a person to share or share faith as I'm sure 1-to-1. That's one thing, but it's like you can't be on the corner sharing your tracts. You can't be if you don't believe in
Like you can't be the guy in Vegas with the bullhorn that has the giant sign that says if you don't repent today, you're all going to die and go to hell. That guy.
The end is nigh.
You can't be that guy. You can't be the guy who's like, you need to believe the way of Allah. You can't be the guy who says you need to believe the way of Yahweh. You can't be the guy who says you need.
They don't allow that in Israel at all.
It's a very secular. So to say they're not progressive, I mean they're a very Western country.
Okay, all right. I could be wrong. I will admit that I've never been to Israel. It is on my list, but I fear that I'll never go.
I wouldn't recommend it right now.
No,
but if you decide to go, I know a good tour late. She's just wonderful. Lives up
Maybe
there
they'll have a music festival right on the Gaza border I can go to.
I don't recommend that.
Wow, way too soon.
The boat ride on Sea of Galilee is pretty good.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll. Yeah. All right. Some comments in chat before we change the subject. Corey says, "I'm a Jew. That's not Jewish." Okay.
Well, that's so he listen. And one to Phil's point earlier, right? The idea of you hear the word frequently, and a lot of people don't understand the distinction. They hear the word Zionist or Zionism, right? Mm-hmm. That's the idea, right? That to be Jewish is a race. So you don't have to be a practicing Jew, but you can be a Zionist, meaning, hey, I'm a Jew, therefore I'm a member of the Jewish race. Do you see the distinction there?
Right. No. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Jew is one of those rare crossover terms where it can apply to your religion, it can apply to your ethnicity, it can apply to your heritage, it can apply to
it's like what Polish
country you're in.
Applies to being stupid. Yeah, I get you.
Well, really, Polish equals stupid. I mean, it's not like there's some people that are like Polish equals smart and Polish equals educated and Polish equals I can change my own oil. No, Polish equals stupid. Danny says, take an 80,000 foot view. There are people controlling the governments of the world called transglobalist. They have a home wherever they go and everything they need completely separate from the common sheeple.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm sharing chats in the comments in our chat. Margie asked if disposable diapers. What did she say? Hold on, I'm trying to find it.
What?
Do disposable diapers melt in the ground? Only
are they biodegradable?
Only if you're in Chernobyl. Margie also said, teach the children, give them real information, not dumb them down to death. All I could remember.
Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Yeah, that's what automatically popped into my head. J. Andrew Kennedy said, I'm going to Lori's Beach Shop. If Andy isn't there, I'm leaving terrible reviews on Google. Justin said, wow.
Don't worry. Andy will be
propaganda. Justin needs to provide more. I don't know if you're agreeing with me or disagreeing with me.
What does he mean?
I think he means the U.S. propaganda, but he can explain further. Corey accused me of sounding like Holly tonight. I'm sorry. I'm not mean and snarky enough to sound like Holly tonight, but I'll practice. Danny says the nation with the biggest guns that rebuilds things for the bankers, cycles repeat. Let's do it again. Yeah. I mean, the U.S. made a lot of money globally rebuilding all those economies that we destroyed by bombing them. I mean, let's just be honest. We didn't do it for free out of the goodness of our hearts.
No, in a way, we created indentured servants.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a very similar to a strategy that's being used by China right now on a global economic level, right? So
and then Margie said that American Indians slaughtered the buffaloes. The American Indians did not slaughter the buffaloes. I put this in chat. The American Indians didn't.
Hold on. First of all, hold on. Let's look at this. This is fascinating that you said this, and you said it the way you said it, Kevin, because I think this accurately illustrates the conversation we were talking about in a sense, because she said the Native Americans slaughtered the buffaloes. It's a proportionality comment, isn't it? Because if you've got 100 Native Americans in a tribe, right, and there's a herd of 2,000 buffalo that live in their area, and they kill them all over the course of 20 years, would that be considered slaughtering the buffaloes? Now, there's millions others around them, but they never come to that area, right? It's a proportionality debate. It's a proportionality comment, isn't it?
No. Here's why it's not proportionality, right?
How do you
hold on? Here's
how
why
do you literally ignore that very plain? God damn it! Let Tom say it, because Tom looks like his head is hurting, like he fell off a roof or something. And I just want to know what Tom has to say. I gave a legitimate proportionality argument, and Tom's being all quiet, like he doesn't want to offend me. It's okay.
Margie's correcting it. No white slaughter buffaloes. Thank you, Margie. You're correct.
No, that much is true. Yeah.
I don't think you could ever use the term that Native Americans slaughtered the buffaloes. They hunted, as was their ways in the Plain States, and that was their food.
What do you mean by slaughtered then?
I mean, and they were
what white fur trappers did.
I mean, they just came to the plains. We're looking at the 1800s. So maybe 1,000 years earlier.
But they weren't hunting them to sell them. They were hunting them as their food source, and it basically was a replenishing supply.
Yeah.
Then the white fur traders showed up and saw dollar signs and just killed willy-nilly just for the
But now you're making political arguments. You're not addressing
not a political
comment.
Argument. It's a historically accurate comment.
Yes, but it does not accurately represent the statement. The statement was that Native Americans slaughtered buffaloes. Not how many. Not that they wiped them out, not that they exterminated the whole species. It was simply that they slaughtered buffalo. That was it.
That was it. Okay. All right.
Yeah. When the population went low, they would move on. I mean, they just kept moving. So it was just, it's just like, when you garden, you
garden where you can garden and move on to the next.
You plow the earth, and you if you're really good, to leave so many years of fallow land, to keep everything going.
No, Margie, we know you didn't say that. Above it looked like that's what you said. Go look at your earlier comment, but we've corrected that. Tom, what were you going to say?
About
my head.
You started to say something a second ago, and then Paul interrupted you because he's afraid of your intellect taking over the show.
I heard what Tom was thinking. He was going, ow, my head. I could hear it all the way through the computer.
Oh yeah, Justin had a good point in chat about the buffalo too. Not only were they killed by fur traders for the fur, but there was a point where white settlers decided just to kill the buffalo en masse because it was the Native Americans' food supply. And if you got rid of but you got rid of the Native Americans.
For sure, but that still didn't get back to the comment.
And by the way, the Germans did the exact same thing to the Polish. They just got rid of all the sausage, and the Poles were in big trouble. No more Polish sausage in the Warsaw Ghetto.
Wow. Wow, that's fascinating, Kevin.
Was it Polish or was it?
I thought it was funny in the back of my head before I said it, and then as I said it, I thought this was going to be very funny.
They misunderstood. They were supposed to polish off the sausage.
Oh yeah, polish off the sausage. All right.
Paul, you got background noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a house with kids and animals. Sorry.
Paul's trying to figure out the joke. Hey, do we have more about this situation in the Middle East, or should we segue to something else? What do you think, Paul?
No, what's going on in the Middle East?
Oh wait, no, Lori had a comment. Lori, you had a comment you were going to comment on. You said you had a comment, but we didn't come back to you for your comment because Paul.
I already did.
Oh, did you already do it?
Yeah. Okay. I was asking you guys a question. What
was the question? What we thought about what?
Whether you thought that Israel
was too progressive
for their neighbors and everything else, with respect to their population.
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I do think it is I think it's very much a religious thing. Well, I think it's very much that the Islamic. Well, no, let me explain before you say I'm wrong.
Proven my point.
I think it's no, but I don't think it's about progress. I think it's about religion. I think even if Judaism was far more conservative than Islam, it'd be the same thing. All of these countries in the Middle East are run by some form, some level, some degree of Muslim zealotry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So the general people, I don't think are like that. I think if you found the average Iranian on the corner and they were free to speak about whatever they wanted to speak about, I don't think they'd be like to America or annihilate the Israeli. I don't think most people are like that. But the leadership in all of these countries are completely mired in their Muslim.
It depends on which sect of Islam they're following.
There are only two sexes, Sorry,
no,
go
sect,
ahead.
not sex. Sect.
Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
It depends entirely on which sect of Islam they're following. There is one very hard line, very conservative, very intolerant.
Sharia, yeah.
And I always mix up which is which. Shiite and Sunni.
Or Sunni, yes. Right.
Yeah,
Sharia is the law. Yeah.
Right. There's one side that is very, very conservative and very hardline, and I don't think Lori's far from the truth on that, because that very hardline, school of thought isn't. I mean, they're going to see they're going to see Israel as a progressive. And Israel's far from progressive, but they're going to see them as very progressive. Women serve in the military.
Well, that's a whole different conversation.
But it's not.
I'm being
because
funny.
yeah, when you talk about that very conservative Islamic stance, a woman in uniform fighting, that's crazy.
Especially against Muslims.
Yeah.
Because if a woman kills you, you will not get your 72 virgins.
True.
You'll only get 6.
and they're not virgins, they're Virginians. Anyway.
Ouch.
All right. We're getting ready to head back to break. So when we come back, guys, I'd like for us to talk a little bit about the speaker race, because the Republicans still continue to show that they just can't figure out a plan.
American
I have some constitutional scholar questions.
Ooh, constitutional scholar questions. We'll do that.
I have a poll that should scare the hell out of every God-loving American.
You have a what?
A poll.
A poll.
Do you mean a poll as in like a survey?
Yes.
Or a poll as in what a stripper dances on, or a poll as in somebody from Poland? What do you mean?
As in the headline literally says shock poll in bright red letters on the Drudge Report. And it blew my mind, but I guess it shouldn't have. So,
okay. Well, we'll get into that. Stick around to the Outlaw Radio Network. We're going to go to break. During the Facebook side, we'll let Paul swear a little bit so we can get it all out of his system, so he doesn't have to scream at his children later. And we'll come back. So stick around. It's Outlaw Radio. K-Dog, Black Tom, St. Paul, Lori, Bob Ross. I'm waiting for Bump. I don't hear any Bump though.
Oh,
30 seconds. Love doing my FM shock voice. Thank you for listening to the show. We appreciate you.
Sounds like you smoke a pack a day.
It's a little bit like FDR, don't I? Thank you.
Didn't say that, but okay.
Can you do your?
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Sean's mad at you.
Can you do your RFK?
RFK? No.
I don't know. I can do the
RFK. Sean's technically a Virginian. Well, guess what you're doing in the afterlife?
Be forever played on the old Western show.
Mm-hmm. The Virginian.
Maybe we'll pose the question here and get on the next part. Imagine if Israel decided to lay down arms, like, you know what, we're done fighting. And now imagine if the Palestinian side decided, you know what, we're done. We're laying down arms. We're not fighting. What would be the result either way?
Mayhem.
You just short-circuited my brain.
Chaos. The U.S. and Iran wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
The aliens are going to land in the middle of Jerusalem.
It's a real simple answer for either case.
Yeah, the aliens would land in Jerusalem.
It's a big if.
No, they'd land in Salt Lake City.
Okay, let's face it. If Palestinians lay down arms, what would happen? Israel would be like, cool, peace, we're good. Mm-hmm. If Israel laid out arms, Palestine would be cool, genocide.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's 100% true. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
You are right.
I feel like that's part of the issue that I have worldwide with this entire issue is that we have people that are like, oh, what about Palestine? Those poor Israelis are being so mean, without accepting the fact that if this all, like you said, if Israel agree, we're going to lay down our arms right now. We're even going to give you your own land and your own borders. We're going to give you 100% autonomy. You get to be your own people.
They have that.
Well, but they don't.
Within reason.
But they're still not
like,
their own independent country.
Let's give you water lines. Great.
Yeah.
We're going to make missiles out of them.
But even if they did all of that, they would still try to wipe them off the face of the earth. It's in their version of the Constitution.
Or the Quran.
Well, it's in their religion.
It's in their belief structure.
In their extremist interpretation.
It's in the fabric of their being, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So,
but do you ever get rid of Hamas? Do you ever get rid of Hezbollah?
I'm going to answer that question next. Hold on. Outlaw Radio Network. We're coming back. Stay right there.
No, you don't.
You can. I'll tell you how.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm interested.
God, please shoot me now.
All right, Outlaw Radio.
Network.com.
Before we get to our next topics, I'm just going to answer this really quick. On the Facebook side, Tom said, "Do we ever really get rid of Hamas?" I'll tell you how.
No, that was Laurie's question.
Lori, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was
Lori,
Laurie's
Tom, Lori. They look so much alike. I'm going to answer that question for you. You can
just because we graduated from the same college. Come on now.
You can get rid of Hamas. There is a way to get rid of Hamas.
I'm curious.
And it's the same way that you get rid of any massive major hate group, right? There was a time where people said, well, you'll never get rid of the IRA, the Irish Republic, the Irish, what was it? What was the IRA? Irish Republican Army? IRA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. They say you'll never get rid of the IRA. What did they do to get rid of the IRA? They address, well, they don't exist now. They're not carrying out terror attacks across England.
That doesn't mean they're not there. They're still there.
But they're not doing what they did before. So how did England do it? They did it in two ways, right? They addressed some of the gripes that the IRA had that was valid. Okay.
Right.
They addressed some of those, and they severely punished the members and the supporters of the members in retribution until it became not cost effective. It is amazing what people will do when the price becomes too high. Hamas will cease to exist if you address some of their issues that are reasonable and you hit very, very, very hard the leadership. That's what they did. That's what the U.S. did to the Native Americans, right? How did you oppress the Native Americans that were rising up?
You kill enough of them, eventually they give up.
You address some of their grievances, although not very well.
I would say
you hit them hard until they gave up.
That's mostly what they did.
Right. But I'm saying that's how you get rid of Hamas.
It gave them a lot of blankets.
You figure out what you've and some wonderful doses of smallpox. You figure out what Hamas is upset about, what the Palestinian people are upset about, right? And you address those to take away
the existence of Israel.
Well, no, I don't think the average Palestinian. I don't think the average.
No, they don't. You're right. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
You figure out what the average Palestinian person finds important that they can address. What can Israel do to fix those issues? Because that will take away some of the appeal that Hamas has.
Yeah,
jobs.
Right?
If the average Palestinian person can live their life and do their thing, and they don't need Hamas to get them there, well, you're drying up sources of funding and sources of manpower. Mm-hmm. And then what you do is you hit Hamas really hard. You hit the leadership. You hit their supply lines, you hit their money trails, you hit everything you can until it becomes too costly or too life-threatening to do the job. And then you put them out of business. That's what they did to the mafia. Oh crap, they're making all this money because we outlawed alcohol. Well, let's take away a revenue stream and now let's hit them hard. And that's exactly what they did. You could argue the federal government violated the Constitution in their pursuit of mafia and mobsters.
You think so?
They did. They did because they responded with way overuse of force on a lot of them. But at that point, they just didn't care. They knew that they had to hit hard and hit fast and cut them off the kneecaps. And that's what they have to do with Hamas. But what Israel's doing now will not, to answer your question the other way, Lori, what Israel's doing now will not get rid of Hamas. Because what Israel's doing now is not surgical, and it's not addressing the needs of the Palestinian people. What Israel's doing now is kill them all and let God sort them out.
What?
And you're gonna militarize more Palestinians, especially young Palestinian men. You're gonna create more enemies of the state. And I don't fault Israel. What are you going to do when you just had what happened to them happen? Right. But this is not the answer.
But do you think it's possible to find the active members of Hamas in Gaza? I mean, it's 25 miles long. It's not that big, and there's 2.2 million people.
I'm going to answer that question. You know how I know they can?
How?
Because the Mossad found what was his name, Paul? The architect of the genocide that made his way to Argentina after World War II.
Right.
No, Himmler?
No, it wasn't Himmler. It was
Mengele. Mengele.
Yeah.
Dr.
Mengele was one. There was another one too. Anyway, the Mossad was able to track them down in the 40s and 50s. One of them in the 70s.
That was Mengele. Yeah.
In a time when there was no social media, there was no email, there was nothing.
Computers.
No computers. They very easily could have hid out there forever. Now these idiots are leaving IP trails all over the place. I think Mossad could find these guys in a heartbeat.
Well, so I was going to say it took, your previous example, it took decades, and how much in resources do you think?
I don't think the cost of resources matters to these. No, Israelis.
I don't think it does either until it gets. Well, like you're saying, cost prohibitive. I mean, if it gets to the point to find 30 or 40,000 people, think of it that 30 or 40,000 needles hiding in 2.2 million needles.
They found one needle hiding in Argentina.
Yeah. Right.
But I'm just saying,
long time.
It did.
It took a lot of
But
resources.
I think it'd be easier now because we are such a interconnected society with the internet, telephones, cell phones, all of that, satellite. All the eavesdropping that they do. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I get your point, Tom. It would take a lot of resources and a lot of work. But if you're Israel and you want this situation to resolve itself, at some point you have to make the decision to be surgical rather than destructive. And again, I'm not faulting what they're doing now because I don't think they have a choice. But at some point, you're going to have to brain shift from bombing everything to how do we do this surgically and how do we win the Palestinian people over to our side? Because they're not doing that right now. They need to win the war of public opinion in the Gaza Strip. How do you do that? You start to alleviate poverty. You start to alleviate food shortages. You start to alleviate water issues. You stop letting Israeli settlers settle into Palestinian lands, which turns Palestinians against Israel. Like you start making rational, you don't take out an entire apartment building because you want to get to one bad terrorist and kill 35 innocents at the same time. You have to sway the Palestinian people over to the Israeli side of the fence. And until you do that, you will never have an end to this.
You just put a bounty on their head for Hamas, each of the Hamas. And
you could do that too, but I think if you don't do all the other stuff,
right? No, I agree. You have to have multi-front.
Yeah, you have to fix the hellacious life that Palestinians suffer on a daily basis.
Yeah,
not the Hamas people. I'm not talking about Hamas. Yeah. The average mom and dad in Palestine that live in a mud hut and are barely keeping their kids alive, and they have to have a lot of kids. Why? Because some of those kids aren't going to live. And the other ones that do are important to the fact that they're an agriculturally based society in much of Palestine. So they need the extra hands running the farm and running the goats or running whatever else they do. So they have to have a large family, but they can't feed the large family. So if you can somehow get them to feel secure in their life and feel like there is enough food and there is opportunity and there is enough water and I'm not going to watch my children die from subpar medical care when I know that Jewish children are getting better care across the border. If you could address those things and level out the playing field, you could easily defeat Hamas in a long game. But you have to make it a long game and you have to be patient and stick to it. And Israel hasn't committed to that. Well, and they felt the wrath of that when Hamas attacked, and now they've knee-jerked back, rightfully so, to trying to wipe them off the face of the planet. But you'll never end Hamas if you don't. Tom?
But there's massive cultural barriers to that whole idea as well. I mean, those cultural barriers go back 1,000 years, maybe longer.
I agree with you, but here's the deal. Sting said it once when he sang. I don't remember the name of the song. Oh, it's called Russians.
Yep.
And it was basically about the risk of a nuclear war, right, between us. And the question was posed, would the Russians strike first? And Sting in the song said it would be such a horrible thing to do if the Russians love their children too.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you can, all that parents wanted their kids to have a life. Mm-hmm. And if you can take away the daily angst of the Palestinian people and replace it with hope and an ability to move up and support your family, you will take away the power that Hamas has over those people, because there won't be the hate fermenting under the skin of these people that are oppressed and mistreated and ignored by the Israeli government.
I agree.
It would take a messianic figure, I think, to do that.
Yeah,
I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
That hate is so ingrained. It's part of the culture now. You have to get past the cultural divide, and the hate is built into that culture.
Yeah,
correct. But you know how you get past that? I'm sorry, Paul. You know how you get past that? You start with the young generations that don't grow up in poverty, don't grow up dying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that they don't know what their parents knew.
You control the education system. You tell the teachers what to teach.
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. That don't
I am.
All.
What?
Well, I mean,
it worked. It worked here.
I don't think it did, Paul. I don't
really.
I just.
What are the pronouns your kids use in school?
My daughters use she, her. Thank you very much. I think it's.
Let it sink in, brother. Let it sink in.
I know. I think you're right. But how did we start to diffuse racism in this country? We accepted that the generations in the South that were racist were racist.
Well, there's lots of them.
But there aren't as many as there were. And why?
Morgan Freemaned it. We stopped talking about it.
They didn't in the South Bowl, believe me.
That was Morgan Freeman's quote, though, right?
No, I know. But we started working on improving living conditions in the South and improving relations in the South and improving education in the South and doing things that we weren't really doing before the Civil War in the South, where they were mired in poverty. We started to try to raise some of that part of the country up a little bit. And as you do that, you eradicate some of the racism, because you're replacing lack of knowledge with knowledge. Bob's about to disagree with me. I can tell by the look on his face.
Before the Civil War, it wasn't a question of poverty. They were mired in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it certainly was a question of poverty. I mean, slavery was part of it, but a majority of the white Americans that lived in the South prior to the Civil War were dirt poor and broke.
Oh, yeah, the white people.
Uneducated, yeah.
I'm what was it, like the rich folk?
3%
of the Southern population owned slaves, I think. Is that about right?
I thought you were talking about the colored folks.
No.
I was going to say, it wasn't a question of poverty. They were just property.
Yeah. No.
What did you call them, Phil? Did you say colored folks?
That is what I said.
I'm talking about the white folk, but it was really easy for the white folk down there with the crackers. You start calling them the crackers.
Why not, man? Why not?
South before the Civil War to buy into racist ideals because they weren't educated. So the only thing they heard from everybody around them is, look at the chattel. African Americans were chattel. They were to be owned. They weren't worth anything. And when you're not educated and you have no other exposure to the world around you to learn that it's wrong, you just assume that it's correct. Look at the people in Gorst.
Wow.
They still believe in riding a horse into town.
Oh, for God's sake. That was one time, Kevin, and I was drunk. So get off it.
All right, really quickly, Paul, in 5 minutes, and we'll get to your topic. In 5 minutes.
Yes.
The Republican Party has completely poo-pooed all over itself. They put Jim Jordan up twice for Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
Both times he's been shot down.
Yeah. McCarthy was 27 times. I get it.
No, I'm just saying. Do you foresee a scenario where they suddenly come to a conclusion on Jordan and he does get ratified? Or is
I don't think so.
And they're going to have to find another candidate.
So here's the problem. Here's the problem. There are a few Republicans right now that have basically said, we're not going to let anybody that Matt Gaetz and the 8 that cost McCarthy his position, we're not going to let them be victorious. There are some Republicans that have turned this into an issue of my guy's better than your guy, right?
Mhm.
Instead of we just need to get this done for the betterment of the people. They've literally turned it into the worst of politics. And that's not a lot of them. It's just a few, but it only takes a few because of that slim majority. And I will say this, anybody who thinks that the Democrats are like innocent in all of this, I would submit to you that 8 Republicans cost McCarthy his speakership position, but over 200 Democrats decided to shut down government because they were the ones, because they all voted in lockstep to remove McCarthy. Ultimately, if government isn't working, it's because of those 200 Democrats. Because they're just simply voting from a partisan standpoint to keep a person out of that position and not allowing the people's house to go forward and do its business. Let that sink in. I'm not saying that it's Democrats' fault. That's not what I'm saying. But what is Democrats' fault is that if there is a shutdown and a shutdown occurs because they can't get back to business, talk to the Democrats because they're the ones who forced it.
I can't argue with any of that.
I know, right?
No, I want to disagree with him, but he's right. I mean,
I can't.
I don't have an issue with the fact that the Democrats voted McCarthy out because he's red and they're blue, and that's what I expected them to do. But Paul is right. I agree with Paul in the sense that, look, if you want to blame the government for being ineffective and unable to run, the Democrats have control of,
most of it.
Of most of it. And if it isn't getting, this reminds me of Obama's first term, Paul.
Yes.
And Trump's first term when the Republicans had control, right? Like you have control of the White House, the House, and the Senate. You literally should be able to pass any bill you want. If you want to pass a bill making Saturday National Banana Day, you should be able to do that because you have control.
Wow, that sounds racist.
It wasn't meant to be racist, jerk. But if you want to pass a bill that makes Saturday National Banana Day, you should be able to do it because you have control of all 3 sectors of the of the government to pass a bill. And instead, they can't get out of their own way. The Democrats, I don't know if you heard about what Rashida Tlaib said. I don't want to go back to Israel. But we're going to start to see the Democrats fracture about this. Because Joe Biden came out and talked about, well, hey, we have intelligence that says that Israel didn't do this, so we stand with Israel. And Rashida Tlaib came out and said, you know what? The people on the left are not going to forget how you stood blindly by Israel, and we will remember this day.
Yes. And there's infighting within the Democrat, right? And Debbie Wasserman Schultz came out and threw some hatchets right at the head of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar because of their, I don't think you can get away from the racist nature of those 2 congresswomen, because they are taking positions based solely on the skin color and the ethnicity in this crisis, right? Which is completely evident by the whole. You killed 500 people when Israel, dropped missiles on a hospital, right? It's been conclusively proven that it wasn't them. And these 2 individuals are still out there peddling that message and drumming up the hatred. And this is not the kind of situation where you should get off scot-free when under these circumstances, you drum up that degree of hatred, right? Them drumming up that type of hatred can literally get people killed.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's a challenge, right? I think it's a risk, and I think that both parties in the global sphere of things are not working for. I don't think either party wants a I've said this before. Neither party really wants a resolution to any issues the nation faces.
No,
not if it's good for fundraising, right?
No, fundraising is the most important thing. If they can keep money coming into the coffers, Democrats and Republicans have no motivation to end abortion or save abortion, dependent upon your side, because there'd be less people donating to campaigns. They have no need to fix the southern border because there's nobody. It would dry up some money being donated to campaigns. They have no reason to fix the healthcare system because there would be less money coming into campaigns. I mean, it's obvious. It should be obvious to everybody. The only time they'll come together is when it's blatantly easy to do. Like we want to increase the age to smoke in this country to 21. Or when it's a matter of national emergency. Holy F-bomb. We just got attacked by Muslims on 9/11. We need to pass some bills to make some things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, there's no motivation to solve anything. You could solve this federal funding issue really easy. In fact,
do tell.
All the Senate needs to do is pass a rule that automatically renews the funding for 2 years if a new funding bill isn't passed when the biennial budget expires.
That's it right there. Kevin Chambers for Congress.
Listen, all they'd have to do is pass a bill that says on October 1st of the beginning of the next biennium, if there's not a new budget passed, the old budget renews for 2 years at the exact same levels. For the exact same programs, no add-ons, no deletions, no subtractions. Everything stays exactly the same and it's renewed for 2 more years.
That's brilliant.
That would force Congress to do their job because nobody's going to want that. The Republicans are going to want more money for the military, and the Democrats are going to want more money for student loan relief or whatever it is. It would force them to the table. They'd have a gun to their head,
and it would
figuratively, not literally. Sorry,
and it would automatically start saving money just by nature of the passage of time.
Yep,
that's brilliant.
Yep, and
make it a 1%.
Oh, we're talking about the importance of the passage of time.
Yep. No, I wouldn't put the 1% cut in because then you would be alienating Democrats from supporting that bill because they don't want to cut they don't want to cut it by 1%.
Well, I was going to say if you did, you'd be right on Rand Paul's.
Oh, I'm
plan.
Sure. Yeah, and conversely, you could increase it. You could say, let's increase the budget by whatever the cost of living increase is, right? So if it's a 2.1% cost of living increase is decided by whatever office decides that, then you increase the budget. But then you would alienate Republicans. So you basically tell both sides to bugger off, and we're gonna automatically renew the budget for 2 more years if you don't have a bill passed. No more continuing resolutions. No more holding the American people hostage. No more threatening to shut down federal workforces. No more insinuating that military men and women are going to have to go serve our nation and not get paid until they come around to daddy's way of thinking and pass a bill. You make it mandatory. No way around it. You pass a bill or 2 more years.
Dun, dun, dun. She swallowed it.
All right, Paul, talk about what you found.
Well, listen, you guys, I've made this very clear over the years, right? Like I am not a fan of polls, but sometimes they do give you a
We're
glimpse.
not a fan of polls on this show either, Paul.
Well, I mean, there's no need to make it a racial thing, Kevin, and I'd appreciate it if you'd step up off my back about it.
Poll is not a race; it's a nationality. You're whiter than I am.
Well, listen. Oh, first, so before I can say this, Tom said something the other day that really got me thinking. So I started doing some research. Well, when you were talking about how these fights between the Palestinians and the Jews have been going on for thousands of years, and so I was curious. And does anybody in the studio know how far back people calling themselves Palestinians goes? Truman?
Well, calling themselves Palestinians or the pre-Palestinian peoples that have merged to become the Palestinians.
60 years?
Well, yeah, since about the British Mandate. So it was the British Mandate one day, the next day it was Israel. And it was under the British Mandate back in the 1920s when they started calling it Palestine. And so anyway, I just I thought that it was very interesting, because I don't want to say that it lessens the argument, right? Because I don't really think it does. I think the argument is far broader than that. Well, how long have Palestinians been around? It's just an interesting, piece of information to go on.
Yeah, but before that, there were the Ottomans before that, and I mean the name.
But the Ottoman Empire went from Turkey all the way down to Egypt and all the way over to Iran. So. I mean, even Jordan and Iraq and Syria, Lebanon, these places were all created by the British. They did not exist before the British Mandate.
Because they were all Ottoman Empire stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it was just interesting to me.
But the conflict between people in the Middle East has, it doesn't matter what you call them. They all trace their lineage back to the same place, and they've all been in conflict for a long, long time.
To that point, I agreed with you on that. and I was listening to this to a Hasidic Jew who was talking about history, and he specifically talked about that claim, and he pointed out, he goes, actually, for thousands of years, people of all Abrahamic faiths have gotten along side by side in the city of Jerusalem. It was only until exterior political influences got into the mix, that's when conflict would start, whether it was the British or the French or the Catholics or the Muslims or whatever. And it was just very, very fascinating. The more you dig into it, I certainly had some misconceptions because I was kind of going down the path that you were on. Not that what you were saying was wrong, Tom. I just had some misconceptions, so I was glad that I educated myself on it.
Bob Ross.
I was going to say, if you have more than 1,000 years, you have one Abrahamic faith. If it's 2,000 years, there's one. So I'm just
well, I'm not getting into a theological debate about it.
No, I'm not talking theologically. I'm just talking about chronologically.
Okay, well, I'm sure that will make them all feel better. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that data. Go ahead, Kevin.
Muslims didn't come around more than 2,000 years ago. It was like 700 or something like that. I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's remember. Not thousands of years ago. So, I mean, I got distracted by that little chronology.
Yeah, here's what I don't understand. Here's what I don't know. Just to be honest, right? What I don't know is whether or not we're splitting hairs over the term Palestine in relation to the people there, or if their roots go back further. Does that make sense?
I totally, and I'm right there with you. I think we are splitting hairs. Yes, I do. I think we are splitting hairs.
Yeah, like Palestine didn't exist before the Palestinian decrees that came after World War I by the British, but it was called Palestine as early during Napoleon's time, because Napoleon was actually the first person to propose giving the Jewish homeland in Palestine, although it never came to fruition. And so I just don't know where the lineage stops and starts, Philip.
Yeah, I don't either. Anyway, it was just, like I said, it was just interesting. So let me get back to this poll.
Okay, go back to the poll.
So if I asked you guys, and I'd like everybody to answer this, what percentage of Americans doubt democracy still works, and how many percent view violence as acceptable now in order to enact or enforce their political beliefs?
How many people doubt that democracy still works? 12%. How many people would adhere to violence? 8%.
Depends on how you define some of these things, but
does democracy still work?
12% would say no.
In the United States, yes.
Well, we're not a democracy. We're a republic.
So when I'm assuming that
you just gave Paul a massive erection by saying that. Congratulations, Philip.
I assume they're talking about democracy in the United States,
democratic process,
the democratic process of a representative.
Democracy is yes, we are a representative republic. Democracy is a process within the form of government that we have. Yeah. So, and thank you, Phil. I creamed my shorts. I appreciate it.
So I said 12 and 8. Hold on, Paul. I said 12 and 8. Okay. Tom, what do you think? And then we're about to come up to the top of the hour, so I'll have you give us the numbers on the Facebook side. Okay. If you're listening to us on AM, sucks to be you, please download us from Spotify. Tom, what do you think the percentages are?
I hope it's less than 10% on both.
Okay. Lori?
Up until the speakership, probably 5%.
For both?
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, are any of us close? Don't give us the numbers
yet.
Are any of us close?
No, not close.
None of us are close. All right. So we're gonna go end the show on AM. If you're on AM and you like the show, as I said before, be a friend, tell a friend. If you don't like the show, pretend like it never happened. And if you're offended, you've been listening to KBRO. And then we'll be back on Sunday at 8:00. If you're on Facebook, we'll wrap up this discussion. We will check out some final comments in the chat before we wrap up tonight's show. And Philip clearly has something planned because he has a grin on his face larger than Joe Biden when he finds pancakes.
Phenomena.
Hey!
Phenomena.
Phenomena. Outlaw Radio Network. Phenomena. Hey, Paul, you should do this at karaoke sometime.
Yeah, I got the words down. Phenomena.
I'm thinking about going to karaoke on Friday, by the way. Anybody want to join me?
Phenomena.
Maybe. Where are you going?
Probably the same place as before. Same
And
place I had my birthday party.
Oh,
Probably.
yeah, maybe.
Let's pretend some of us don't pay attention.
Well, I don't want to put it on the air because the Holly might
It's
show
over.
up and try to.
Yeah, it's
try to
over
run
on
you over.
Kitsap Way. It's that place right across from the old
Next to
doctor's
Brother
clinic.
Don's.
Yeah, right next to
Next to Brother
Don's.
Don's.
Oh, that narrows it down.
Well, now everybody knows where the fuck it is. I'm going to the dugout. We're probably going to go to the dugout.
Yeah, nobody said the dugout.
I thought you were going to the smoke shop.
No, the dugout.
Phenomena.
Tom, will you sing this time? If you come to karaoke? Will you come to karaoke with me on Friday?
You guys hear how high Kevin's voice goes when he's begging people to
it
go
would
to
mean
karaoke?
everything to me.
I can't commit to that one way or the other right now.
I'm sorry. Let me ask the person who controls this. Heather, if you're still listening to the show, can you and Tom come to karaoke on Friday?
Yeah, I think she's still in the
I'll buy
chat.
I'll buy you each a drink.
And
of water.
We're placing bets on the parking lot arm wrestling match between you and Tom. So
Are we having a parking lot arm wrestling?
I guess you are.
Oh, that's perfect. Let's
now
arm wrestle
I
Tom
don't.
when he's injured his
I
back
don't get
and
to
his
arm
balls.
wrestle him. What happened to me? I thought I got to arm wrestle.
Well, you're not here.
I challenged you and you refused in studio and said you didn't want to do that because you were too scared to lose to your co-host.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that ain't what I said. Okay, so let's finish this up really quick because I gotta go. I gotta go feed horses and stuff.
God, you didn't even drive in. Don't make me feel bad. Okay, go ahead. What do you got? What are the percentages?
All right. Here's the thing. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say F-Bomb just answered Kevin in the chat about karaoke.
What'd she say?
She said, yeah, as long as she doesn't have to sing.
Nope, she doesn't have to sing what Tom does.
Ooh, J. Andrew Kennedy put $25 on Kevin.
That's right.
So this is a fairly large poll as far as polls go. There were over 2,000 registered voters that were polled on this, and normally it's around 500-600. But so this is a larger segment. There's a plus or minus of 2.2 percentage points. Okay. 31% of Donald Trump supporters and 24% of President Joe Biden supporters say democracy is, quote, no longer viable. Now, that's the language.
Give me the percentages again.
31% of Donald Trump supporters and 24% of President Joe Biden supporters said democracy is, and I quote, no longer viable and an alternative system should be tried. Now, that's the first part of this. Right. So those numbers weren't even close to what we were all thinking. Because I was thinking in the same range as you guys.
That scares me. An alternative. What alternative?
Authoritarian.
Well, great question. I don't know. So let's go on to a couple of these other questions. When asked whether it is acceptable to employ violence to stop political opponents from attaining their goals, guess what the percentage of Biden and Trump supporters said yes?
12%.
I'm terrified.
12.
Wait,
you said 12%.
Biden and Trump, both of their supporters. Okay, go ahead.
Because they didn't break them down into Republican and Democrat. They said Biden supporters or Trump supporters.
That's a distinction without a difference.
All right, what do you got? Give me the numbers. I'm about to be very disappointed.
41% said yes. Do you think that was of Joe Biden or Donald Trump supporters?
Oh, Biden.
I would take either one, to be honest with you. I mean,
it's Joe Biden. 41% of Biden supporters.
What percentage of Trump supporters?
38%. That is a substantially
40%.
huge number of Americans that believe violence is completely acceptable and okay to prevent your political opponent from attaining their goals. Let that sink in.
I'm going to start packing more often.
In the meantime, the libertarians are like, can we all just get along?
Wow.
Here's the last one, and this one actually really shocked me. What percentage of Biden and Trump supporters do you think said that the government should restrict the expression and views that are, quote, considered discriminatory or offensive?
Oh, 60 Democrats.
So Biden supporters, 47%.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Said that it was okay to restrict the expression of views considered discriminatory or offensive, and 35% of Trump voters. So this is one of the few times when I do feel like that this polling data did represent a snapshot in time of the political winds in this country. And it adds a great deal of strength, I believe, to my argument that this country is in a very precarious place.
We're
politically,
just on right?
Yeah.
This scares the holy shit out of me.
Right?
Yeah, and it should. I'm right there with you, Tom. I'm right there with you.
Really?
It should not. Can I tell you why?
Why?
And Paul, I really want to spend a good chunk of show on this later. And if you find more resources, I'd love to see them. Paul today shared a video of a theory about about the 80-year cycle.
Right. Yeah.
About fascinating stuff, man. That's just fascinating.
World history, and they lay it out that basically everything happens in 4 20-year segments that makes up an 80-year cycle. And if you go back every 80 years, the situation of the world is exactly the same, and it leads to the same processes. And the way it plays out is different, but the theory behind it is all the same. So I oddly enough have a weird amount of hope now. Because
I'm there with you. Yes, I'm there. But I found it fascinating because when you go back and you look at every 80 years, you're like, holy shit, you know? And so I'm there with you. And there was another one, there was a second one I posted, and I watched a few others, and they point out, almost every one of them, that the United States is the kind of country, as a quote unquote melting pot, as a Christian nation, because of our values and our morals and stuff, we have a much better chance than a lot of other places of when we go through these world-changing events, we have a much better chance each time of coming out better on the other end, which we have.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with that. But this polling data does suggest to me that my fears are not unfounded with regards to this upcoming election cycle. That's my point, because I would hate to see this country devolve into some version of some sort of civil war there'll be nothing civil about it, when you've got Antifa running around looking to kill any conservative they can get their hands on, and probably vice versa. So there's just
Venezuela.
There is a ton more people that are okay with that idea than I ever thought remotely possible. Like I was thinking 10-15%. You're extreme right and you're extreme left. Oh, was I off big time. So,
well, yeah. And listen, I think it is a foregone conclusion that this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Can't we all just smoke a bowl and get
No,
along?
stop it. You potheads. That's all you got.
Yeah, but the bowl's going to be a big bowl in the desert. And
no craters. No, I want any craters. Gram and a half, 2 grams, nothing bigger.
I don't think Kevin maybe at that point, Kevin, like if the place erupts into a civil war, Kevin, will you at least sit down and smoke some pot with us?
No.
Really?
I made it 52 years. I'm 52 years old. I've never even experienced.
If this country breaks down into a civil freaking war over politics and a presidential election, you can't tell me you will have any fucking thing better to do than to sit down and get baked out of your ever-loving mind.
Tequila.
You're going to want to forget that shit. You're going to be like,
I just board up all my windows, get my gun out. I'm going to have to, protect the homestead.
Do you own a firearm?
Of course I do.
Oh,
yeah, but it's a 6-shot 22 pistol.
It is not a 6-shot 22 pistol, Paul. God.
I have one of those.
I mean, it's only a 9, but it's enough.
It's a 6-shot. That's like
I have a little
bitsy.
I have a little 6-shot 22 pistol. It fits in the palm of my hand. It's so cute.
Oh my
I know.
God.
They're actually really quite effective in a pinch, man.
Last time I used a 22 revolver, it was a 10 because they're so tiny.
Oh no, this thing is super tiny from the bottom of the handle to the barrel. The whole thing fits in the palm of my hand.
Sure.
It's adorable.
Tom, if Tom shoots somebody in the right place,
this is
right behind the ear, it'll go in and rattle around a bit.
Yeah, bing, bing, bing.
Depending on who you hit, right?
Yes, for sure.
This reminds me too what we just saw in Israel. Hate to go back to that.
Mhm.
Wow.
We saw people that was it, are they progressive or not? I don't know. They don't let their citizens be armed. Now, I'm not saying it would have 100% solved it, but boy howdy, there would have probably been fewer.
There've been fewer kidnappings,
fewer people kidnapped.
Well, they came out and asked their
beheaded.
citizens to get armed.
Yeah,
fewer women murdered, fewer cattle raped.
I know that
Wait,
you've been there, Phil. Phil, I know you've been to Israel. Let me ask you a question because I really have no idea on this. Don't members of the Israeli reserves, the IDF and reserves, I thought that they had their firearms at home. Is that not the case?
I don't know. I never went to their homes.
Oh, okay.
I was on a tour, but
I didn't know if it was something
I saw in public. Yeah, I saw some Israeli. I don't know if they were reserves or not, but they were like pretty darn young, and they're packing their rifles. But it was far and few between, is what I observed.
Okay. Because I didn't know. I don't know what their status is. I know that I have seen some videos, specifically one that's going around because the Hamas terrorists were wearing GoPros. And in one of these instances, they went into this kibbutz. I think it's kibbutz, if I'm pronouncing it right. They go in there and they're going door to door. In fact, the dude even shot out the tires on an ambulance, right, so that it couldn't be used. Basically, I guess. And you hear them. These two Palestinians are having this conversation, and they're walking around and they're just shooting into people's windows randomly. And then all of a sudden, pop, 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 and you hear he just goes down. He's like, oh. And he's mumbling to himself, and you hear him take his last breath, man. And they put that out there, and that's all over the place. And I, put a smile on my face, kind of.
Just remember, unfortunately, this whole area is kind of a gun-free zone. The citizens are not armed.
Is it a gun like the
Israel,
country itself?
The military, they have their armories and whatnot, but the general citizens are not armed. It's functionally a gun-free zone, which. More and more, I'm just like, these are places I don't want to be
until
that's called
October
being
10th.
a target.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you right now, if there's one thing that we saw that happened out of Israel that should remind us why we need the Second Amendment to be protected in this country, that's exactly it. Yeah. Because right now, if some terrorist group decided to stage that type of an assault at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds at one of these holiday bazaars, whatever we were talking about before, where Lori sells all of her anal beads, buy one get one half off or half in.
Then freshly cleaned.
Listen, we would not be able to defend ourselves, and that's the scary part of this entire equation, right? We are fighting against an enemy that does not play by the same set of rules that they expect us to play by.
That's right. Can I ask you guys a real quick question here before I get off? There is
before you get off with
really you couldn't let that go, could you? You couldn't let it go. Okay, Daddy. Here's the thing. Does it? I posted a meme. I posted a meme that I felt was very, very true. And I used to have fun with memes years ago. Now I only post them if I think they truly speak to me. This one I felt spoke to me. And it said at the top of it showed a picture of the Palestinians coming in on their paragliders, right? And the sky there was like 20 or 30 of them in the sky. And the question was, it said, you ask me why I need a 30-round magazine. Does what happened there defeat the left's argument about magazine size?
You would think so, but then Dow Constantine of King County came out today about the whole applying for federal funds to make King County a gun-free area.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah, that was a press conference today.
Hold on. Here's the problem, and then I'm gonna. Bob's got a comment. Here's the problem with your question, Paul. Okay. The problem with your question is that it allows the ability for anyone to think that they had a right in the first place to have the conversation. I'm still of the belief that the Second Amendment is absolutely, unequivocally, undeniably clear that the ability to own, possess firearms, which to me extends to the things that go on in or around the firearms, shall not be infringed.
I agree with you. I do.
I mean, I understand the point of your question. Should this nullify it? But that implies the fact that they had an argument before that needs to be nullified, and I've never believed that their argument was valid.
Right, that's true. You've always been super pro second. Yeah, I get you. I'm there with you. Just, I was just curious. It was something that came to mind.
Yeah,
I still want my machine gun, just for funsies.
Oh, I want one
to... that Elon Musk has built.
Oh,
they're really cool.
It's not hard to make your own, but.
Now I got that song stuck in my head.
You're welcome.
That's my Friday song.
So
There you
one
go,
other
there you
thought.
go.
Yes.
A 30-round AR style magazine. How would you best describe that?
A what?
A 30-round AR, platform magazine. What's the best description for that?
Self-defense.
Now, some people in, say, California, sorry to say, they might call that high capacity.
Yeah,
and everyone else just calls that normal.
It's just 30 rounds. High capacity is a 100-round drum.
And you know what you call?
That's what I was going to say. I have a 100-round drum, man, and I love it.
What do you call 17 rounds in your Glock 17?
A waste of a firearm. I don't like Glocks.
Hold on.
Well, okay.
Here,
it's called standard.
But here's the problem.
Plastic
Do you know how I
gun.
would answer that question, Philip? Do you know how I would answer that question? Irrelevant. It doesn't matter if it's 5 rounds, 30 rounds, or 130 rounds. Irrelevant.
Because Kevin is a constitutionalist.
The Second Amendment does not say you may have firearms as long as it's only enough to protect you and your 3 children. It does not say you may have firearms only to hunt. It does not say you may have firearms only so you can shoot yourself in the leg in a dance club. It doesn't say any of those things. It says it shall not be infringed. Like, infringed, for those of you idiots in Belfair that don't know what the word infringed means, it means it shall not be changed, altered, withheld, denied, anything, hindered in any way is what infringed means. And if you read the Washington State Constitution, it is even more specific on the guarantees of the Second Amendment in the state. So the argument, any argument, that guns can be infringed upon in any way at all, period, is flawed. In fact,
they
I
are
would
doing
argue
it,
that
and they're still trying to.
I would argue that convicted felons should be able to own firearms because, again, it says it shall not be infringed. I would argue that people being accused of domestic violence constitutionally should be able to own firearms because it says shall not be infringed. Period.
No, it's valid. I get it, man. I'm there with you.
Yep. And if you want to change it, it's simple. Please pass a constitutional amendment. Please pass a constitutional amendment to say convicted felons are not allowed to own a firearm. I would think that Democrats and Republicans together could circle jerk each other to get that bill to pass. Okay.
Wow.
So I don't think that would be an issue. I think you could very easily get bills to pass that would say, if you meet the following criteria for a red flag warning, you cannot have a firearm until that's adjudicated. And I would think both sides would agree to that.
My point was,
yes,
the wording they use is things like high capacity magazines. But like in the case of a Glock 17, a 17 round is not a high capacity magazine. It's standard. It's like you have the high capacity tires on your Jeep. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much the stock size or pretty close to it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Listen, I don't know.
We got to outlaw Z-rated tires because nobody has business going that fast on the road. No high capacity tires, right?
Well, and let's be honest. Let's take it one step further, right? I mean,
no. Let's go home and go to bed.
Since I'm not going to go off-roading,
right.
Does that mean I shouldn't be allowed?
Paul.
Since I'm not going to go off-roading, does that mean I shouldn't be allowed to own my really big-ass tires on my Jeep?
Should you be allowed to own a Jeep?
That's a great question.
I'm sorry. We live in America where we have choices.
Maybe I can mount a gun to the Jeep. Did they think about me mounting a gun to the Jeep?
I think you should mount a 50 caliber to it.
Oh, I would love to do that, man. Give me a rocket launcher. Let me put a rocket launcher in the back of that Jeep.
3D print up one. Not a real one, but like a 3D printed.
That would be the best. That would be the best Halloween.
Paint it black.
And just printing black already.
No. I
right.
would get like vinyl, like camouflage things to put on it, and then, that'd be great. Hey, Paul.
Good night, guys. My phone is dying. So,
Paul.
Bye, Paul.
We love you. We appreciate you. We'll see you Sunday.
Love you guys.
Paul.
Bye.
Paul, do you have any parting shots? Yes, Kevin is always right about everything he says. He's the best co-host ever. I love him. Good night, Paul.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Kevin? Actually, you're really close to being correct on that. Close.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
All right. Dennis.
Kevin.
You have any parting shots, Dennis?
Wait, I had my constitutional scholar questions.
Oh, okay. Really quick. Hey, Dennis wants to get out of here. Ask your constitutional scholar questions quickly. Yeah,
Quick
Dennis.
closing thought.
Yes.
Losing to the Cowboys hurt.
I know.
Did you see the videos of the fights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, those fights were
that was
phenomenal.
embarrassing.
And did you see them trying to swing at each other and slipping on the ground because of the wet beer all over the place? Like a Charger fan or a Cowboy fan would rear back to hit somebody, and then their feet would slide right out from under them, and they'd fall on their carcass on the floor. That was great.
And that's the second embarrassing fight at a Charger game this year.
Is it?
Last one was the Raiders game before this one.
The biggest issue with the Chargers, Dennis, tell me if you agree with this, is that at their stadium, they get as many fans for their team as fans for the other team.
Yeah, there's people that want to say, oh, it's just attacking fans, but in other stadiums this year, there's been a fan that died from getting hit in a fight. And the thing is, if you can't go to the stadium and talk your smack and have fun and laugh it up, then why are you going out there?
No, that's a great question, man. I totally agree with you. Like the fact that you can't coexist.
Yeah,
I mean, and Philadelphia is famous for that, where you can't go to Philly for a game with the other team's jerseys because they're just pricks to you. But
I wouldn't have ever went to a Chargers Raiders game in Oakland. Wearing some Chargers gear.
God, why would you, man? Like literally, why would you?
Yeah, but with the exception of Oakland, the further east you go, the more rabid the sports fans get.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, New York, where they snowball people.
Yep.
Snowball. Never mind. I thought the wrong snowball. I apologize. I blame all of you for my dirty mind tonight. It's all your guys.
I would tell a joke, but it's totally tasteless.
Of course,
it's bad.
We have comments in the chat. Can Outlaw please share the Lori Bead site? Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, if you look up higher, he's been trying to find it.
It's called LoriLovesAnal.com. And
no, it's not.
There you go. There you go. We have another comment. Which one are we looking at here?
That one.
Which one?
The one where I have a smiley face on it?
Oh, Lori B is a BS business, thank God. A Bachelor of Science business. Yeah, that's true. She had to get her Bachelor of Science so she could open her own business. We support that. Let's be honest. I'm all about people being entrepreneurs. We're big supporters of Kiki and Drew's foot pick site. I'm really in favor of supporting small business. And so if you
Black Ring Spirits,
if you sell foot picks or manufacture your own alcohol in a bathtub in the bottom half of the mall here in Port Orchard, or if you want to sell anal beads with like cool designs and signatures on them, more power to you. Listen, what a better way to spend a Friday night with your loved one than using anal beads that are autographed by all members of Outlaw Radio? I mean, I just want you to think about that. Can you imagine the look on Phil's face? We were like, Phil, here's some beads. Can you sign these?
I'm going to bring some in Sunday.
Oh, my God. That's great. That's phenomenal. All right. Dennis, did you have any of the parting shots?
Cooperate for kids.
Cooperate for kids. A portion of every bead that Lori sells is donated to programs to support children. Just so we're clear. All right.
Okay. How in tune I am.
All right.
Okay, I think it's probably.
Philip, do you have any parting shots?
I guess I'll circle back to the one just on the gun topic.
Mm-hmm.
Just a reminder, we know we carry a gun, so we're hard to kill, but know the law, so you're hard to convict.
Amen.
And there's a guy that wrote the book on it. So if you, I don't know, can I put a shout out to the? I bought his book. It's pretty good. If you want the hardcover, it's kind of a fun website URL, lawofselfdefense.com/gethard.
Oh boy. Here we go.
Okay, we went that bad. All right, Kevin.
Yes.
We're talking about a hardback book. What are you talking about?
You want to know the difference between weed and pussy?
Oh no, Dennis. Okay, what is it? I don't want to know.
When you
what it
smell
is.
weed from across the room,
You
that's
know
a
it's
good
pretty
thing.
good.
All right.
Wow, I thought you were going to wait to drop that joke.
Not lying.
I don't even know what to do with that. Don't even know where to go with that. All right. Lori, do you have any parting shots?
She gets to follow that.
I know, right? Thanks a lot, Dennis. I just wanted to leave everybody with a couple questions that they should really be thinking about. I know that we have Israel and Hamas war going on, and in the background there's Ukraine and Russia. But right now, you are not being represented. Until we have a speaker in the House, we do not have any House representatives. So the speaker has to be voted in, then rules and procedures, then everyone is sworn in based on those rules and procedures. What is happening right now is closer and closer to another shutdown right at Christmas. Pay attention. Flood the phone lines. If you're on email with your representative, send them emails. Get active. Now's
Tell them
the
to
time.
do their job.
Well, you heard what I said before, right? We are going to have a federal shutdown.
Yeah, I heard what you said.
It is
I
going
don't
to
want to
happen.
believe you.
Well, but I'm right because I'm never wrong. Please take notes. There'll be a quiz later. We are going to have a shutdown.
I hope you're wrong.
We are going to have a shutdown. It is a given. Accept it. Enjoy it. Like it. Plan for it. Hopefully, you've got some money set away so you can afford to get gas and groceries. If you're a federal employee, there is going to be a shutdown. Sorry. There you go. Tom, parting shots.
Yep. Watch where you step.
What?
That's it. Watch where you put your feet.
Watch where you step.
Oh.
In light of what happened today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't fall through the roof.
Yeah.
So when walking on roofs or in sidewalks in Seattle,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Watch
And
where you step.
parts of downtown Bremerton.
Or the streets of Tijuana.
Or the streets of Tijuana.
Oh, I haven't been to
Mhm.
Tijuana in decades.
Good Lord. I think I
Outstanding.
was 5 the last time I went.
They have potholes that would swallow a Jeep.
Yeah, yes, they do. They have potholes that have swallowed donkeys.
That sounds like Tijuana to me.
That's what we were talking about.
I'm saying that sounds like Tijuana to me. Mm-hmm. All right. My parting shots are as follows. Take care of each other. Be good to each other. I will just remind all of you that this is a really hard existence for some people. Like everything that we're seeing on the news. I saw a T-shirt that says, be kind to the next person you see because you don't know what kind of battles they're fighting. And so just be good to each other. Show some love. Show some patience. Show some kindness. Don't be a douche canoe. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you back here on Sunday. This is the Outlaw Radio Network, a presentation of DJ D and his sexy ass. Good night.
Network.com.